The second Jihan logs into the tutorial, some rando is already lunging at him, ready for the kill. This guy clearly thinks he's found some fresh meat, but he couldn't be more wrong. He just picked a fight with a god in sweatpants and a tank top. Jihan effortlessly catches the blade between two fingers, a cocky smirk playing on his lips as he imagines the beatdown this idiot is about to receive. The attacker's brain short-circuits, completely unable to process what just happened, as Jihan's counterswing sends a shockwave that knocks him off his feet. Still, the fool refuses to back down, convinced his A-rank agility is more than enough to handle this bizarre opponent. But the instant he charges, Jihan sidesteps like he isn't even there. He unleashes a desperate flurry of attacks, but every single one slices through empty air. Jihan anticipates every move with practiced ease, a product of his countless battles. Honestly, he's getting bored. So on the next charge, Jihan disarms the guy, and, before his opponent can even register the shock, ends him with a single, clean strike. Because this isn't his first rodeo, Jihan is a regressor. It's no wonder he's operating on a whole different level. The story begins when some cruel, omnipotent gods decided that life on Earth was just too damn peaceful. So they engineered a cosmic death game between planets, forcing them to survive waves of monsters before their chosen champions battled it out. Any planet that lost was wiped from existence, while the victors were blessed with unimaginable power. In this brutal game, Jihan was Earth's undisputed champion. He once took down the deadliest monster imaginable with a single punch. The blow cost him his arm, but the sheer power of the feat left the entire world stunned. After all, this was a beast that all the other top-tier awakeners combined couldn't even scratch. But without his arm, Jihan was deemed unfit to represent Earth in the final round. When faced with champions from other worlds, Earth's so-called top awakeners turned out to be a complete and utter joke. Hulking orcs demolished them without mercy, mocking humanity as a fragile and pathetic race. Following their crushing defeat, Earth's deletion protocol was initiated. The entire planet and every living soul on it were erased from reality. And yet, Jihan endured, shielded from oblivion by a unique personal skill. The gods orchestrating this sick game saw his insane potential and offered him a second chance. He awakens, finding himself right back at the beginning. He's in his old bedroom, where everything is calm. Outside, children are playing, their laughter untouched by fear. He realizes he's been sent back to a time of peace. Just to confirm, he pulls up his status window. His stats have been reset to level 2. It's real. He's back. He has returned to the very moment he first entered the game, the same cursed game that would later merge with reality and unleash hell on Earth. For now, he dives into his inventory, and something immediately snags his attention. It's an achievement points exchange coupon. This item grants special perks to the last survivor who chose to retry the game. It's a custom-made gift, just for him. And it's a rank X item, meaning it's beyond legendary, a ridiculously powerful and rare artifact. He activates it instantly. The system boots up a brand new, exclusive achievement store, a personal shop filled with unique items, and best of all, it can be upgraded. By pouring in enough achievement points, he could level up the store and unlock a whole new tier of game-breaking items. He desperately needs something he can use immediately, but the starter selection is garbage. With no other real options, he decides to gamble and upgrade. The level 2 expansion is a complete bust, offering nothing of value. So, he doubles down and pushes it to level 3. Again, it's filled with junk. With only 50,000 points remaining, upgrading to level 4 would leave him with a measly 10,000. He knows that the cost to upgrade climbs exponentially. The next one would be astronomically expensive. This leaves him with only 2 possible moves. He can either cash out and buy the mediocre junk available now, or he can risk it all on one more upgrade to level 4. Jihan has always been a high-stakes gambler, so for him, the choice is obvious. He smashes the upgrade button for level 4, and his all-or-nothing bet immediately pays off. This new level unlocks an item called Urgent Restoration. It gives him the power to repair any broken item, restoring it to a flawless, perfect state. It's moments like this, the thrill of the win, that prove why he can never walk away from a gamble. How could anyone quit when they keep hitting the jackpot over and over again? Now that he's secured this god-tier ability, it's time for the ultimate test. He makes his way to a secure room deep within his sprawling penthouse. He presses his thumb to a biometric scanner, gaining access to a restricted area. Opening the BattleNet connector's inventory, he finds exactly what he was searching for. It's an item named Dongfang Shuo's Spoiled Brush, a piece of A-rank junk that even its own description calls useless. But with a little help from his new Urgent Restoration ability, he can reverse the damage and transform it into something truly legendary. The spoiled A-rank brush glows, reforging itself into an SS-rank divine artifact that channels a direct link to the martial god. Before he can even admire his creation, a system notification explodes in his vision. The tutorial for the Gangnam Bronze League is starting. He has only 10 seconds before he's summoned to the arena. There's no time to waste. He yanks open his status window and, with the divine brush, begins to paint over his own stats. The single greatest reason he managed to climb to number 7 in the world during his first life was all thanks to one specific ability. It was the power that eventually earned him the title of the Martial Saint, a unique stat that fused his strength, agility, and HP attributes into one unstoppable force. It's a power called Martial Power, unlocked by a ruined, discarded brush that has finally ignited his awakening. The timer hits 0 the exact moment he lays down the final stroke. Bam! He's ripped from his world and thrown into the BattleNet League. The objective for this Bronze League tutorial is painfully simple: survive against the hordes of monsters unleashed in the Colosseum. He's been thrown in with 100 other players, and this brutal free-for-all only ends when half of them are dead. The last one standing will be crowned the winners. The second his feet hit the arena floor, Jihan frantically pulls up his status window. A wave of relief crashes over him. It actually worked. He has successfully obtained martial power, and the system even gifted him 1,000 achievement points as a bonus. This is merely the first major step in his grand quest to obtain the legendary, nameless divine art. But even with this single power-up, he's confident he can absolutely steamroll the entire Bronze League. A system alert flashes, warning him that he's jacked into the BattleNet without a connector. The consequence? He's about to feel 100% of all pain inflicted in this game. Jihan knew this was coming. Before the Space League officially kicked off, during the tutorial phase, players could buy connectors to dull the pain. His brother-in-law, Yoon Sojin, used a high-end model that could block out a staggering 99% of all sensation. Jihan definitely plans on getting one of those later, but for now, he'll have to endure everything raw. Suddenly, his achievement menu pings, revealing a brand new limited quest. Achieve the number 1 rank in this tutorial. The reward is another 1,000 achievement points. This quest never existed in his past life, but with martial power at his command, crushing this new objective will be a breeze. The game officially begins. Not even a full second passes before someone lunges at him from behind, sword raised high for a decapitating strike. The attacker is clearly trying to gank a clueless newbie off guard to score a cheap, effortless kill. But his jaw drops in disbelief when Jihan casually stops the blade cold with just 2 fingers. The guy can't even yank his sword back. Jihan turns slowly, a cold smirk playing on his lips, and thanks the man for his generous donation of the first kill. This right here is the game's most thrilling feature: the absolute freedom to mercilessly slaughter other people. Another massive change that rocked the world with BattleNet's arrival was the emergence of guilds. Guilds are massive organizations that scout, train, and manage players, capitalizing on the world's insane obsession with BattleNet. As a result, every nation began funneling massive resources into developing their own homegrown players. Mega corporations also invested aggressively in player growth, sparking the creation of countless guilds, both large and small. Thanks to this head start, South Korea was able to cultivate incredibly powerful players early on in the league's history. The Gangnam Bronze League became the premier stage where each guild's most promising rookies made their debut. In this very match, a hopeful player materializes inside the Colosseum alongside everyone else, trying his best to suppress his shaking nerves. This potential cannon fodder, named Do Hyuk-gyu, sees himself as the luckiest man alive simply because he's with the Divergent Guild. That's the legendary guild managed by the Divergent Group, an organization famous for producing a steady stream of superstars. Do Hyuk-gyu, an otherwise ordinary young man, managed to snag a spot in this elite guild after acquiring the A-rank gift, Agility. An A-rank gift is incredibly rare, and because of it, he's dead certain he can at least make it into the top 50. Now, his first move is to size up the competition. His eyes scan the arena, seeing nothing but powerfully armored knights. He spots hulking warriors and terrifying, monstrous players. Faced with this field of nightmares, Do Hyuk-gyu makes a bold choice. He ignores all of them. He just turns away, pretending he didn't see a single one. After all, the golden rule of survival is to simply stay alive. But the other players are already staring him down, practically smelling the fear radiating off him. If he hesitates and gets eliminated right at the start, the sheer embarrassment would be unbearable. Looking around, he realizes most players are from major guilds and are decked out in high-quality equipment. This feels less like a Bronze League match and more like a pro-level showdown. But then, he spots someone who looks completely out of place. Standing among all these elite rising stars is a guy wearing a plain tank top and sweatpants. He doesn't have shoes, armor, or any weapon to speak of. Do Hyuk-gyu seriously wonders if this guy even meant to join the league. Or maybe he was just summoned here by accident. He has to be a total newbie who stumbled into the wrong place. And a newbie means a free, easy kill. Hyuk-gyu tenses his muscles, getting ready to pounce. He mentally praises his good fortune for handing him such a perfect target right at the beginning. The moment the system announces the game's start, Hyuk-gyu explodes from his spot. lunging in to deliver a decisive final blow on the unsuspecting rookie. But to his absolute shock, the newbie doesn't just block his strike, he catches it with just 2 fingers. It's completely illogical. How can someone who looks so out of place possibly keep up with his A-rank agility? Before he can even process what's happening, Jihan effortlessly flings him away, launching him to the side as if he weighs nothing at all. Jihan then scoffs at him for daring to enter the Bronze League with a basic gift like agility. That jab sends Hyokyu into a rage, who can't stomach his A-rank ability being trash-talked by some guy dressed in rags. Maybe Jihan is just getting cocky, because he deflected a single attack. If that's the case, Hyokyu is about to teach him a brutal lesson, powering up to his top speed. It's clear the player is about to unleash everything he's got, and our MC has to admit, even his previous speed was seriously no joke. Hyokyu blitzes forward, aiming straight for Jihan's throat, but our MC masterfully dodges the blow, dipping down just before the blade can make contact. But the furious assault isn't over. Hyokyu immediately presses on with another attack, and another, and another. Jihan sidesteps every single strike, but that doesn't mean he's having an easy time. He's accustomed to fighting with god-tier stats. Now his brain is struggling to adjust to being back inside a level 2 player's body. Hyokyu isn't actually that fast. The problem is, Jihan is slow, which means this showdown won't be the cakewalk he first imagined. Still, even with this handicap, for a warrior who has survived countless battles, his overeager opponent's attack patterns are just too simple, too predictable. Hyokyu lunges in for another massive swing, and Jihan is officially done playing defense. This time, he smacks the weapon right out of his attacker's hand, sending the sword spiraling through the air. Then, before Hyokyu can even register what happened, Jihan leaps into the sky, snatches the sword mid-air, and plunges it through his foe's neck, ending the duel instantly. Hyokyu crumples to the floor, and as his body glitches out in defeat, he swears that the next time he and Jihan cross paths, he's going to be the one who wins. The threat makes Jihan sigh, putting into perspective just how chill this world is. The guy is literally fading away, and he's already planning their next match. The system dings, notifying him that he's scored the first kill in the tutorial, earning him 100 achievement points. The sword, unfortunately, vanishes, since its owner has been eliminated. Our MC doesn't need a blade anyway, and now that he's had a decent warm-up, it's time to find his next target. First things first, he needs to secure over 5 kills to lock in a good rank for this mission. As he suspected, though, no one is bothering with the monsters. Inside the battle net, besides the players, there are monsters too. But a monster kill is only worth 0.1 of a player kill, which means you'd have to waste 10 monsters just to get the score for a single player takedown. Because of this terrible exchange rate, most people just ignored the monsters completely, especially in a map crawling with tanky mobs like orcs. Wasting time on them would be absolutely pointless. But it seems the system has a soft spot for pointless tasks because it issues him a new quest: exterminate all 30 orcs in the Colosseum. Sure, hunting monsters is inefficient as hell, but the prize is 500 achievement points, which is 5 times the bonus he received for scoring the first kill. With a payout like that, there's literally no reason to pass this up. Besides, these basic NPC monsters are nothing like a true orc anyway, so this really shouldn't pose much of a challenge for him. With no reason to hold back, he decides to go all in on the clueless monsters. At first, the orcs are just baffled, unable to comprehend why a nearly naked human is sprinting toward them at full tilt, but they quickly shake it off and band together to crush him. The 2 in the front hurl their axes, hoping to cut him down from a distance, but Jihan snatches the weapons out of the air with ease and whips them right back, mowing down several orcs with a single, devastating throw. This sends the rest into a frenzy, but Jihan is already on the move, blowing past their front lines and reappearing deep within their ranks. Then, with a mighty swing of the second axe, several orc heads are sent tumbling through the air, but our MC is just getting started. He's only taken out 5 orcs so far, and the remaining 25 do not look happy about his performance. They're now even more determined to tear him apart, but they are simply no match for him. He moves with a speed they can't possibly follow, and his raw combat experience is on full display. Another orc charges in with a spear, desperate to land a quick blow, but Jihan intercepts the weapon and snaps it like a twig, leaving the creature stunned and confused as our MC closes in to finish it with the axe, except the weapon unexpectedly shatters as he swings it at the orc. This injects the remaining orcs with a fresh dose of confidence, thinking he's vulnerable now that his weapon is destroyed. They were probably banking on having an easier time with him. The orcs all swarm him at once, and Jihan almost has to admire their persistence. But it doesn't matter how hard they try. He's on a completely different level. He stomps his foot into the earth, and the resulting shockwave is so powerful it shatters the ground, launching every orc charging him into the air. Then, he leaps, snatching the weapons that flew from their grips as they were blasted back. In a split second, he blinks through the crowd, a whirlwind of steel that sends even more orcs to their graves. The absolute slaughter rages on, bodies dropping left and right until only one remains, frozen in pure terror. In that final moment, the orc understands. Jihan is a far greater monster than they could ever be. As that truth dawns, Jihan erases him too. And just like that, the quest is cleared. The system dumps 500 achievement points into his account, just as promised. And he even gets a level up from the fight. Leveling up mid-game is almost unheard of, since EXP is normally calculated when the game ends. But it might be a perk for still being a low-level player. Whatever the reason, Jihan's not about to look a gift horse in the mouth. He seizes the chance to pump up his stats, while he has it. And there's one stat that's getting all his attention, his top priority, martial power. This stat is a 3-in-1 package, and while other players might upgrade, with those stats, a single level up in martial power can literally double his abilities, at the very least. But there's another, more calculated reason why martial power is Jihan's main focus. And it's all because, once he pushes it to level 30, he gets a shot at acquiring the unnamed divine arts. To become the strongest, he needs to get his hands on that skill as soon as humanly possible. There is, however, one fatal flaw with the stat. Getting martial power to increase is ridiculously hard. Under normal circumstances, you'd need a ton of combat, experience, and brutal training just to budge the stat, and points can only raise its maximum growth potential. But this time, for some unknown reason, his martial power level actually shot up. This is huge for him. Jihan isn't sure how it happened, but if it keeps climbing like this, his dream of clawing his way to the top might not be a fantasy after all. But there's no time to stand around daydreaming. This is still an active battlefield. While he's scrolling through his stats, an archer tries to snipe him. He predicts the shot with ease and sidesteps the arrow without breaking a sweat. The archer is rolling with a warrior decked out in some seriously expensive-looking gear, and the condescending smirks on their faces say it all. The girl tells her partner to finish this quickly, their cocky smiles, screaming that they see him as nothing more than a free kill. It's not that weird to see a two-person team in this free-for-all. This survival game is designed for player versus player combat, but there's no rule that says you can't team up. The emblem on their gear reveals they're from one of Korea's top 10 guilds, the Turtle Guild. The real problem with this fight is their synergy. A warrior and an archer create a deadly combo of close quarters and long-range pressure. The fact they're a coordinated team means this won't be an easy fight for Jihan by any stretch of the imagination. A notification alert appears. Only 60 survivors are left. The tutorial is about to wrap up. The body count is already insane. With the end so close, all Jihan really needs to do is dodge this pair's attacks, and he'll cruise to the finish line. But the fact they came hunting for him means he looks like an easy target. While Jihan calculates his next move, they're so full of themselves that the warrior actually asks the archer out for dinner, as a reward for killing Jihan. Right before the brawl kicks off, Jihan checks the leaderboard and sees he's barely clinging to first place. With 4 kills, that settles it. If he takes out these 2, his top rank is guaranteed. To start, he goes for the archer, blitzing her while she's still distracted by the warrior's pathetic attempt to flirt. With his martial power stat sitting at level 6, they had 0 chance against him. The warrior is stunned that his partner just got deleted, but he doesn't even get a moment to mourn. Jihan is already behind him, his sword flashing towards his back. Luckily for the warrior, his thick B-rank armor saves his skin. He sneers, thinking Jihan's shoddy weapon can't possibly pierce it. But Jihan just keeps attacking, relentlessly stabbing the armor in the exact same spot. He chips away at it, strike after strike, slowly carving a hole with his non-stop assault until the opening is just wide, enough for him to land the finishing blow on the knight. Miles away, in a dimly lit office, a woman casually watches a replay of the match, with a cup of tea in her hand. Right as Jihan cuts down the warrior, we see this woman is Lee Hyeon, the 3rd Division, head of human resources for the Divergent Guild. She thinks to herself, what a relief it is that Jihan wasn't summoned, and standing right beside her is her bodyguard, Lim Guyong, the very same warrior who snagged 2nd place in Jihan's match. Guyong is practically steaming, being told she's weaker than some no-name, but Hyun just warns her to avoid picking a fight with the unhinged newbie for the time being. Right now, Guyong has one job, gather intel. But as Guyong replays the match footage on her boss's monitor, a flicker of recognition hits her. She's seen Jihan's face before. She's sure of it. This is Lim Guyong we're talking about, the Divergent Guild's ace, with a legendary S-rank gift. She was groomed to be the guild's next big thing, and her rampage through the Bronze League was meeting every insane expectation. Everyone had bet on her to take first place, and she was on the perfect track to do it. That is, until Song Jihan showed up out of nowhere and blew up the entire bracket. Meanwhile, the Turtle Guild's scout team is absolutely freaking out, realizing Jihan didn't just demolish some of their most promising recruits. but he somehow clinched the #1 spot at level 2, with no gear and no guild to back him up. The man literally rolled up in a tank top and sweatpants, and somehow stacked up 6 kills without a single weapon. That one performance alone was enough to send a shockwave of questions rippling through the entire global player community. But the legend himself is just kicking back in his living room, scrolling through the rewards he earned for conquering the Bronze League tutorial. He cashed in a 50% experience boost, which shot him up from level 3 straight to level 6. Sure, his leveling speed is probably because he's still in the rookie phase, but it's a massive head start. He didn't earn any GP, which is the game's currency, but the level ups gave him a fat stack of stat points, which he immediately dumps into martial power. Just like that, his martial power stat explodes, vaulting from level 6 to a staggering level 9. He also unlocked a new title, Tutorial Conqueror. It grants him a bonus point in every single attribute and tacks on another 20% experience boost. The title only works inside the Bronze League, but that's fine. With its effect, his martial power now sits at a clean 10 points, making him an absolute monster in the Bronze League. The promotion match for the Silver League won't trigger until he hits level 25, so for now, his only goal is to keep stacking power. That's already an insane amount of buffs to his raw strength. But the system had one more gift waiting for him. Because he hit level 5, he unlocked his class advancement. It was finally time for him to choose a specialization. When picking a class, a player needs to know what they're getting into. 4 icons light up before him: warrior, archer, mage, and support. In his past life, he chose the path of the warrior. Since he already has god-tier knowledge of that class, picking it again would be the smart, easy move. But then his eyes drift to the achievement store. An option to purchase an extra class slot is sitting right there. With that single item, even if he chooses a totally different path this time, he can always add the warrior class later on. By spending 10,000 achievement points, this changes the entire game. He no longer has to play it safe and pick warrior first. He's free to try something completely new. His finger hovers over the choices, a plan forming in his mind, before it finally lands on one. Moments later, he's summoned back into the game, this time to the Bronze League's Gangnam sector, for a brand new mission. The area is a sea of undead, thousands of zombies packed shoulder to shoulder. The mission type this time is defense. The zombies are swarming the base of a massive castle, and the players have to slaughter the horde to protect a crystal glowing at the top of the ramparts, all while trying not to become zombie chow themselves. Scattered across the battlefield are defensive towers. The fight will rage until only 5 of those towers remain standing. And perched atop one of them is Lim Guyong, the elite warrior of the Divergent Guild, staring down at the zombie ocean with pure disgust. It might be a game, but the sight of thousands of decaying bodies never gets any less nasty. Behind her, her new teammates begin to spawn in, and they look like they already know this map and mission, like the back of their hands. Guyong instantly recognizes the players she's been matched with. One is an archer from the LK group, decked out in some seriously powerful B-grade gear. Another is a mage. He's unaffiliated with any guild, but his equipment is still incredibly impressive. He definitely looks like he can hold his own. These two seem like solid partners for the mission, but the real MVP in this kind of defensive battle is always the support. This is going to be a long, drawn-out war of attrition, and a good support is what guarantees the team's survival. The final player is summoned, and as the light fades, Guyong's eyes go wide. It's Song Ji-han. He materialized as the support for their group, and just like before, his choice of gear is unique. He's wearing a tracksuit and casually holding a metal pipe, truly the most OP weapon in the game. Flashing back 20 minutes before the mission, Ji-han made his decision. He chose the support class. As he confirmed his selection, the system itself flagged his choice, warning him that the class was not compatible with his stats. But that was precisely why he picked it. He chose the support class specifically because it was such a terrible fit that the system literally had to ask him if he was sure. Picking the support class unlocked a brand new ability for him called Divine Power. Divine Power is the exact ingredient he needs to cultivate another one of his unique stats, but it's notoriously difficult to level up. That's because you can't just grind it out through training like other stats. The only way to raise it is by dumping precious extra points into it. Naturally, Ji-han has no intention of doing that, since he's funneling every single point he gets directly into his martial power. He's laser-focused on acquiring the nameless divine arts as soon as possible, and he refuses to waste his valuable points on anything else. So why would he deliberately choose the support class and saddle himself with the divine power stat? Because he knows a secret, a game-breaking method to boost divine power that literally no one else is aware of. The key to it all is hidden in that shiny new pipe of his. The other players are just as stunned as Guyong to see that Ji-han is a support, but the team's mage is especially not thrilled. He doesn't even try to hide his contempt for Ji-han's basic outfit, immediately flaming him for his gear. He screams at him for not having better equipment and then proceeds to flex how ridiculously expensive his own robes are in comparison. Figuring Jihan is just a broke and useless player, the archer tries to get the mage to chill out before he says something way over the line. But the mage isn't listening. He calls Jihan filthy and declares he refuses to play with someone so pathetic. He's absolutely convinced Jihan is going to tank their entire run. Yang just squeezes her eyes shut, completely annoyed. She silently curses her rotten luck for getting stuck in a party with a total troll, but she's quickly snapped back to reality. A choked gasp slices through the tension. Jihan has snatched the arrogant mage by the collar of his fancy cape, and our protagonist is holding him up in the air like a cheap action figure before. Without a single moment of hesitation, he hurls the mage right off the edge of the tower. He plummets straight down toward the swarming, hungry zombies below. The mage had been whining this whole time that he didn't want to play with Jihan, so our MC personally helped him log off. The mage respawns after dying, and the second he materializes back on top of the tower, he's on his knees, begging Jihan for forgiveness and swearing he'll do his absolute best for the team. This man, groveling at our MC's feet, is Kim Gyu-yuk. And the reason for his sudden 180 in attitude is all thanks to our MC's special disciplinary methods. You see, when a player spawns in the Bronze League defense game, they are granted a total of 3 lives. Kim Gyu-yuk, who came back to life instantly after being mercilessly launched off the tower, was immediately given a second, unscheduled skydiving lesson by Jihan the moment he reappeared. Because of that, he now only has 1 life left, and if he dies just one more time, he'll be kicked out of the game for good. He'll be stuck with last place. That is why he is currently pleading for his life at the feet of our main character. He is praying he doesn't get tossed down to become Zombie Chow again. He has to avoid getting last place, because if he does, his level will take a massive hit as a penalty. That also means that all the skills he shelled out his own money for will simply vanish as a result. If a player's level drops below the requirement for a skill, the system automatically deletes it. Jihan is actually a little surprised by how quickly Gyu-yuk's entire personality flipped, especially since the guy was all set to blast him with attacks the last time he respawned. Now, Gyu-yuk is desperately trying to hype himself up as a fire mage. He boasts that he's incredibly effective against mobs of undead, and he's also level 15, which means he packs a serious punch. For any other squad, he'd be an invaluable asset they wouldn't dare lose, but all his desperate yapping has just jogged Gyu-yong's memory. Kim Gyu-hyuk was once a member of one of the 10 biggest guilds in Korea, a player everyone respected, but then he failed his silver promotion matches 4 times, and after that, he just devolved into a toxic troll who went around picking fights. In short, Gyu-yong knows he's a washed-up loser. Gyu-hyuk keeps on pitching his skills and vowing to work with the team, but he has one condition. He demands that Jihan personally apologize for killing him twice. The archer actually backs him up, clearly just trying to get their team to work together. But on the inside, Gyu-hyuk is still fuming, secretly plotting his revenge for the humiliation. He doesn't even get to finish his internal revenge fantasy before Jihan grabs him by the collar again. And for the sheer nerve of demanding an apology, he yeets him off the side of the castle walls one final time, even though he was the one who started all the drama. And with that, their mage is gone for good, leaving the team a man down. The zombies relentlessly crawl up the tower, and to rub salt in the wound, the team on the next tower over has their own fire mage. He's making short work of the zombies on their side. That's the kind of firepower they just lost, and the archer chews Jihan out for not even attempting to meet the mage halfway. Jihan is completely unfazed and just pulls up his status window to check on his newest, limited quest. This one is a linked quest, and it requires him to secure first place in the 10 Towers mission. And on top of that, he has to single-handedly slaughter 1,000 zombies for a grand total of 4,000 achievement points. Taking down 1,000 zombies by himself, that's practically a suicide mission, especially considering the clock is ticking. But he absolutely refuses to let 3,000 points just slip through his fingers. Lim Guyong stares, her expression screaming judgment, as Jihan stands there, trying to figure out a plan. So far, Jihan's just been doing whatever he wants. And let's be real, even with his fire stats, he's still just a support class. From where Guyong's standing, this guy is absolutely not Divergent Guild material. Not a chance. The archer, however, has 0 chill and is still screaming at Jihan, who finally seems to register that he exists. He finally snaps, telling Jihan that if he's going to keep acting like a clown, he can go ahead and fight the horde all by himself. But plot twist, Jihan is thrilled to hear this. It's exactly what he wanted, a clear shot to solo all the zombies without them getting in his way. Guyong sighs and tells him to get behind her, stepping forward to take the lead. In her mind, this run is a total wash, but she's not the type to bail and feels a duty to see it through. But Jihan just waves her off, saying it's cool. He'll handle the entire front line. They just need to cover each other. Suddenly, a grotesque creature claws its way over the tower's edge. It's a blood zombie, a whole different league of nightmare from the regular mobs. Its head is a swirling mass of liquid, meaning physical attacks should be useless, or so the game wants you to think. But Jihan doesn't play by the rules. As the zombie lunges, he just grips his spear, a smirk playing on his lips. With one clean, brutal strike, he shatters its head into a million pieces. As flaming chunks of flesh rain down, Gu Yong has a shocking realization. That raw power, it had to be divine. Before she can process it, more zombies swarm the tower, and Jihan meets them head-on with his staff. He's only taken down 6 out of 100 zombies. He has a hell of a long way to go. As the undead relentlessly scale the tower walls, Jihan continues his one-man stand against the apocalypse. After mowing down over 24 of them, he pinpoints the real problem, the blood zombies. Normal attacks just phase right through them. So, whenever he spots one, he unleashes a tiny pulse of divine power, making them all pop instantly. The archer's jaw is on the floor. His whole opinion of Jihan just did a complete 180. Yeah, the guy's a jerk, but you can't deny it, our MC is a total pro. Gu Yong, on the other hand, is literally speechless, watching the absolute masterclass of destruction with total awe. He's wielding divine power like it's second nature, with zero waste. His control is absolutely insane, but what's truly blowing her mind is his surgical precision, with every single strike landing as a perfect, skull-crushing headshot. In just a matter of minutes, Jihan racks up a kill count of over 200 zombies, triggering a hidden condition. It's a title called Another World's Faith, and it instantly juices his divine power from level 6 to level 7. So this is his secret hack for leveling up his divine power. And damn, it's working. See, you can level up divine power using sacred objects. Back in 2010, when this whole tutorial nightmare started, these things were sold for insane prices because everyone thought they held some game-breaking secret. But after 10 years, nothing was found. Their value crashed hard. These otherworldly divine items were seen as useless, and most players didn't even know they existed. However, there was one person who knew the truth, Sophia, the legendary saintess of America's first guild. She was the one who clued him in, explaining how she secretly boosted her divine power using these exact items. You could absorb divine power from items that came from other worlds. But here's the catch. It only works while the tutorial is still active. This was the exact grind she used to become a saintess. She would just hold on to an otherworldly item and pray for an absurdly long time. After a while, she would absorb its power. The conditions were different for every item, and none of them were easy. On top of that, because there was no demand, the items were incredibly rare. This allowed Sophia to basically corner the market and snatch up every divine item for herself. This was top-tier, game-breaking information that nobody else had, and you can bet she exploited that advantage. But even with her monopoly, there was a ghost in the market. Someone else was quietly buying up these otherworldly divine items. This meant there was one other player in the world who knew the secret. After Jihan regressed, he went into his sister's room at the Sword Palace penthouse, and that's where he found a massive stash of otherworldly divine items. Every single one had been purchased, and all of them were completely drained of their divine power, little more than empty husks. The conclusion was undeniable. The mystery player who had been collecting these items was his own older sister, Seong Ji-ah. Alongside the Sword King, Yoon Se-jin, Jihan's sister, Ji-ah, was celebrated as South Korea's greatest support, a true hero. How she died is a completely different story. Among all the drained items she left behind, Jihan found a simple steel pole, which had been degraded all the way down to an E-rank item. According to its description, it was supposed to be especially perfect for cracking open zombie skulls, but after all this intense use, it's been worn down to an F-rank item, with barely any divine power left inside it to absorb. But it's built solid, making it the perfect tool for cracking skulls. Meanwhile, Ji-young is just staring, completely in awe of his insane physique and the god-tier control he wields. The archer glances up. Another tower just crumbled. They've officially broken into the top 5. But in the middle of his hype, he's completely oblivious to a zombie creeping up from behind. Gi-young's blade flashes out in an instant, slicing the zombie clean in two before it can even touch the archer. And just from her posture, the way she commands that sword, Jihan knows exactly who he's looking at. That's the legendary Plum Blossom Sword, Lim Ji-young, the woman who was once the acting Sword King. Her story, though, didn't have a happy ending. In his original timeline, she was brutally cut down by the very man she replaced, the former Sword King himself, the one who now calls himself Ryuha. Looks like Jihan's just stumbled upon a major player way ahead of schedule. In this second chance at life, Ji-young snaps him out of it, asking if she can join his squad. She argues that if they team up, they could totally dominate the leaderboards. Jihan pulls up his status window. Yep, they're sitting at a measly 5th place. They've got a massive climb ahead, and the clock is ticking down fast. He knows the Plum Blossom sword can handle herself. She doesn't need his help. But one of his personal quests demands he secures that #1 spot. So, Jihan makes a call. He's leaving the zombies, swarming the tower to her and the archer. Without a word, he just yeets himself off the side of the building before either of them can process. What is even happening? As he plummets towards the ground, he channels every ounce of divine power into his staff and smashes it into the earth, unleashing a cataclysmic shockwave of energy that obliterates every zombie in the vicinity. Thanks to Jihan's absolute carry, his squad skyrockets to first place, crowned the final survivors of the mission. With that, he clears his limited time quest, but he just missed the mark on his linked quest to solo 1,000 zombies. The instance concludes, and Jihan begins the teleportation sequence back to his home base. But before he vanishes, his teammates rush over to give him props. He made that entire mission look like a cakewalk, a true MVP performance. The archer is already hyped, practically begging to squad up with him for the next run. But as the archer fanboys over our MC, Kyung is just staring, her mind absolutely blown by the insane damage output from their support. He was a whole level beneath her, yet his power was off the charts. It had to be a system glitch, right? The shock is written all over her face. The archer dips out first, leaving Jiyoung alone with Jihan. She sees her chance and walks right up to him, just before he's about to log out. She even calls him by name, which totally catches Jihan off guard. In this timeline, they're not supposed to know each other yet, but Gi-young isn't playing by the script. After witnessing his raw potential and the insane feats he just pulled off, she knows, without a doubt, that this guy is exactly who the Divergent Guild has been looking for. And as a top member of that guild, her mission is clear: recruit him at all costs. But now that she's face to face with him, she completely fumbles and asks for his phone number. Instead, her cool, collected demeanor instantly shatters, replaced by pure, unfiltered panic as it hits her. She just skipped, like, 10 steps of the recruitment process. She's asking for his digits in their very first conversation. She has to backpedal, fast, before he gets the complete wrong idea. But before she can stammer out an explanation, Jihan just cuts in with an apology, saying he can't actually remember his phone number at the moment. Then, he pops open his status window, hits log out with a quick see ya, and vanishes before she can utter another word. Kyung is left standing there, wondering how, in the world, someone just forgets their own number. Before the brutal realization dawns on her, she just got curved, hard. Back in the real world, it turns out Jihan was actually telling the truth. He'd been using an American number for so long in his past life that he never bothered to memorize his new Korean one after being reincarnated into this new life. And it's not like he can just ask someone for his own number without looking like a total psycho. So for now, he just has to shelve that whole awkward encounter for later. The bigger deal right now is that he's already on a major guild's radar. It seems all his recent showboating made him stick out like a sore thumb. Hindsight is 20/20. He probably should have just gotten her number instead. But he has zero plans to join a guild anytime soon. Right now, his entire focus is on grinding quests and stacking up as many rewards as possible. He managed to level up twice, and even banked 1,500 GP from that last run, but that's chump change when it comes to the holy items he needs. Sure, the divine gear he's eyeing is way cheaper in this timeline than back in his own, but it's still way out of his price range. For now, his only option is to head home and see what he can scavenge from his sister's storage. He gets back to his place, and the first thing he sees is an extra pair of shoes. By the door, his heart stops. He knows exactly who's here, and the shock sends his bag tumbling from his hand. Everyone has those one or two moments that haunt them forever. Jihan is no different. But his greatest regret, the one that eats him alive, is that in his first life, he failed to protect his beloved niece, Saya. There were a million things he wanted to tell her if he ever got the chance to see her again. He remembers her strength, how she once promised that she would be the one to protect him. And now, there she is, standing before him again alive, as if that nightmare never even happened. More than anything, he just wanted to tell her how desperately he missed her. Yoon Saya, who just hit 18 this year, is the daughter of his sister and the traitor, Yoon Sojin. In his past life, she wasn't home when he regressed. She was stuck with a survivor group out on Jeju Island. But for reasons that were painfully obvious, she was the only one who had to leave that group early. His sister worked tirelessly to provide for them. So from the time Saya was just a kid, Jihan was the one who looked after her. Now, her mother is gone. Her father suddenly defects to Japan and changes his entire identity. They're all the other has left in this world. She is the single most important person in his universe right now. And this whole catastrophe was kicked off by Yoon Sojin's sudden betrayal. When Saya called her father, demanding to know why he would just switch sides, he told her he'd fallen in love. He just dropped that bombshell on her so casually. And while she was completely losing her mind over the phone, he sounded disturbingly calm about the whole thing. She asked him what she was supposed to do now that he was just vanishing from her life. She even begged, asking if he was really just throwing her away. His reply was cold and simple. Yes, he was. It was a condition set by his new lover. And without another word, not even a goodbye, he just hung up. In a single, heartless move, he erased his own daughter from his life. It's a level of trashy that's off the charts. But Jihan knew this was exactly the kind of man he'd always been. He's an irresponsible traitor, willing to toss aside his only child and betray his entire nation, all for some girl. Because of his selfishness, the innocent Seiya was left completely alone and, in another life, was driven to end her own. Seiya spins around, her eyes landing on their shattered family photo. Jihan instantly rushes over to apologize, assuming that despite everything Yoon Sojin did, he was still her dad. But she shocks him, revealing she had wanted to smash it herself. Then, putting on a brave face, she tells him she's totally fine. This is classic Seiya. It didn't matter if her mom died or if her father betrayed her. She would always flash that bright smile, laughing it off while worrying more about her uncle than herself. He knows she's tough, that she can handle herself, but he doesn't want her to have to be that person anymore. From this moment on, even though she's a grown woman, he's going to be the one to shelter and protect her. Seiya just closes her eyes, letting him pull her into a hug. But the tender moment is shattered when she wrinkles her nose and tells him he's all sweaty. Meanwhile, across the Seoul metropolitan area, in Gangnam-gu, deep inside the Divergent Guild headquarters, Lee Hyeon can't contain her laughter as her bodyguard recounts her little encounter with Jihan. The gorgeous Lim Guyong asked a guy for his number, and he flat out rejected her, using the lamest excuse in the book. He claimed he couldn't remember his own number. Hyeon's explosive laughter makes Guyong start to think maybe she isn't as beautiful as everyone says. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The woman just has no idea how insanely popular she really is. Even the few people they pass in the hall can't help but stop, stare, and whisper about how unbelievably cool she looks. The pair makes their way to the company lounge. Here, Lee Hae-yeon seems to finally relax. The two of them are here to strategize their next moves for Jihan's recruitment. They have to get him. It's not a request, it's an order, and the higher-ups are breathing down her neck to get him on their roster as soon as humanly possible. As they're talking strategy, a notification pings on Hyeon's phone. It's a live stream broadcast. She's confused. Who could possibly be streaming? There aren't any major matches scheduled for today. The streamer is some gambling analyst that Hyeon occasionally watches. She calls it strategy analysis. But let's be real, it's just straight-up gambling. But the person on camera is the last one they ever expected to see. It's Seong Jihan, kicking off a guerrilla stream without a single announcement. On the other end, Jihan adjusts the camera angle while Seiya coaches him from just out of frame. Guyong is struggling to compute why Jihan is popping up on a gambling channel, but Hyeon's eyes are glued to the title of the broadcast. Jihan is publicly claiming to be the brother-in-law of the Sword King. The viewers in the chat are losing their minds. Comments are flooding the screen, everyone demanding to know what is going on. The massive statue behind him is the iconic twin sword statue. This is undeniable proof. He's live from inside the Sword Palace penthouse. With the stream now stable, Jihan tells Seiya to stand clear. Then, he channels a massive surge of power into his foot and stomps. The ground cracks beneath him with a deafening boom. The impact shatters the massive pillar holding up the twin sword statue. Before anyone can process what's happening, he swings his fist and obliterates the statue itself. The shocking display sends ripples through the entire stream, causing thousands of new viewers to pour in, desperate to see the chaos. Now that he's made a massive splash and has everyone's undivided attention, it's time for the real show to begin. He's about to go live and address the bombshell news of Sword King Yoon Sojin ditching Korea for Japan. The platform he's using is called BattleTube, which is basically the official streaming service for the BattleNet. And since it's hardwired into BattleNet, this platform's market share is basically unrivaled across the globe. This setup allows Jihan to grab special quests tied directly to BattleTube, like hitting specific viewer counts, subscriber milestones, and view totals. This gives him a whole new avenue to farm achievement points just by creating a spectacle, and demolishing the twin sword statue is a surefire way to go viral. For Seong Jihan, the timing couldn't be more perfect to rake in all the rewards. As a flood of new viewers pours in, he's just stacking achievement points for every milestone he shatters. Meanwhile, the chat is absolutely exploding over the fact that he dared to desecrate such a sacred monument, and as you'd expect, the dislikes are pouring in. A wave of comments also appears, all from accounts with the same profile picture, a black logo emblazoned with twin swords. These are the stands of the Sword King family, and the mere sight of them makes Jihan's eye twitch with rage. That psycho fan club, obsessed with Yoon Se-jeon, is the very group that drove Seiya to her death in his past life. They were once the Sword King's most die-hard supporters, but their devotion curdled into pure resentment after he abandoned them for Japan. That toxic bitterness festered, eventually finding a new target in Yoon Se-jeon's only living relative, Yoon Se-ah. Their vile words and relentless harassment followed Se-ah everywhere she went, a shadow she could never escape. In the end, she was crushed under the weight of their senseless crusade, because they desperately needed someone to blame for their shattered idol. They made his innocent niece their scapegoat, but he'll be damned if he lets that happen again. If they need a villain to hate, then Jihan will gladly play that part. He clears his throat, commanding the crowd's attention. He then slams his fist into the still crumbling statue, making damn sure every eye is locked on him before he drops the bombshell. Ito Ryuhei, their former Sword King, is never coming back. As his speech continues, some people in the crowd start to recognize him, from his legendary run in the bronze tutorial, where he pulled off a shocking first-place victory, against all odds. But the fact that he's still ranked as a bronze seriously undermines his authority here. Jihan ignores the murmurs and shoves his phone toward the camera, holding it close to the mic to play what he calls irrefutable proof. It's a recording of a phone call between Ryuhei and his daughter, Se-ah. The audio, from right after the Sword King chose to become a Japanese citizen, is chillingly clear as Ryuhei explains why he's ditching Korea. It's because he's found a new woman. He admits he's throwing away his country, his legacy, all for her. He's even casting aside his only daughter without a shred of remorse. This was the ultimatum his new lover gave him, if he wanted to be with her. With the explosive message delivered, Jihan cuts the recording. The crowd is left in stunned silence, but most of them aren't buying it. Right now, it's just a juicy piece of gossip, not the smoking gun they need, to believe their hero has truly fallen. To drive the point home, Se-ah herself steps into the frame. To finish the announcement, she declares that while her father promised to pass the Sword Palace down to her, she refuses to inherit anything from a man who has betrayed his own country and his own flesh and blood. For that reason, she announces her plan to donate the entire Sword Palace to the nation, in the hope that it will serve as a foundation for nurturing Korea's next generation of players. As she delivers her powerful speech, Jihan cracks a smile, watching his plan unfold flawlessly. Cut back to 30 minutes earlier, when he first pitched this wild idea to Se-ah. Like any sane person, she was baffled by his suggestion. Why on earth would he want them to just give away everything they owned? He can't tell her the devastating truth, and he isn't even sure she'd believe him, if he tried. I mean, they weren't selling the palace, they were just handing over the keys for free. On the surface, this looks like a completely unhinged move, but Jihan has to get her on board with this plan. For her own damn good, he knows what's at stake. In his past life, Yoon Se-jeon, repping Japan, was the one who single-handedly brought Korea to its knees. The rage of the Korean people boiled over, leading the government to seize all of his assets, including the Sword Palace they called home. Se-ah was left with nothing, and she couldn't handle the endless stalking and terrifying threats from the Sword King's fan club. At the end of that dark road, she took her own life. Since this place was doomed to be taken anyway, it was far better to give it away now, earning public favor and keeping Se-ah out of the crosshairs. To Se-ah, though, he was just her freeloader uncle, who lazed around drinking all day, and he obviously couldn't tell her he'd time-traveled from a grim future, but he had to find a way to get through to her. Incredibly, while he was still scrambling for the right words to convince her, she looked at him and agreed to the plan. He was so shocked he had to do a double take, asking if she was serious about this. Even to him, the sudden proposal sounded absolutely insane. The reason she was now putting her trust in him is that Jihan isn't the type of guy to pull a stunt like this without a master plan. Plus, more than anything, it's been ages since Saya has seen this fire, this confidence in him, so she's putting all her chips on him and his insane strategy. Her incredible leap of faith is what made this whole crazy scenario possible. But that doesn't mean they're out of the woods just yet. Not by a long shot. The entire Sword King family is already up in arms, and they're publicly trashing Jihan, calling him a fraud. A total con artist. But that's playing right into his hands. He needs them to keep throwing dirt on his name, so they leave Saya completely out of the line of fire. Still, this is just the setup. To seal the deal, he's got to drive that final, brutal nail into the coffin. He steps back into the frame, camera rolling, and calls out Yoon Se-jeon by name. He tells the world that the official reason for the Sword King's departure, some woman, is a lie. The cold, hard truth? He's washed up. Saya just stands there, frozen. This was absolutely not part of the plan. She has no idea what to do. The live chat immediately explodes, with half the viewers refusing to believe he'd say something so savage, while the other half is just losing it over the sheer audacity of his claim. Jihan just keeps pouring gasoline on the fire. He claims Yoon Se-jeon only bailed because he knew deep down he could never cut it in the Korean leagues anymore. Even Guyong and Hyun are practically screaming at their screens, watching this train wreck unfold. And then, for the grand finale, Jihan leans in. He tells Yoon Se-jeon to get comfortable in Japan, because they've got a date, and Jihan is going to personally demolish him. And with that, the stream cuts. The two of them walk back into the house to get their bearings. Seiya immediately confronts him, phone in hand, showing him the absolute chaos he's unleashed online. He's kicked a hornet's nest that spans both Korea and Japan. But Jihan? He isn't sweating it at all. He just tells her to chill, that nothing bad will happen, and that she should tune out all the noise this is stirring up, so she doesn't stress herself out. Watching him, so calm after what he just did, Seiya can't shake the feeling that something is fundamentally different about her uncle. It's like he became a whole new person overnight. But honestly, can you blame him? Nobody would be acting normal after literally dying and getting sent back in time. He looks at her and asks if all she ever saw him as was a deadbeat who just drank all day. Seiya tries to take it back, even though a part of her knows that's exactly how she used to see him. Right as they're talking, the doorbell chimes. Jihan already knows who's on the other side, but he's surprised they showed up this quick. Now that the pieces are in motion, it's finally time to start making some real money. Meanwhile, across the sea in Tokyo, Japan, Yoon Sojun is watching the news unfold, a woman sleeping soundly in the bed next to him. The report is rehashing the whole insane series of events, noting that tensions between Korea and Japan are spiraling out of control because of his defection. And things only got worse when the story broke, that he did it all for some woman. Now, with his own brother-in-law, Jihan, coming out swinging with these wild provocations, the situation is a ticking time bomb. All that's left is to wait and see how the Sword King himself will respond. You could almost say Jihan has become the embodiment of Korea's rage. The woman next to him stirs and sits up. Yoon Sojun quickly kills the broadcast, worried the noise woke her, but she tells him she's done sleeping. She's far more concerned about him and the storm he's about to face. But Yoon Sojun cuts her off, telling her she can't call him that anymore. Sojun is dead. He's taken her name now, and that's the only name he'll answer to. This woman, Shizuru, drapes herself over him, whispering that he'll always be Yoon Sojun, Korea's #1 player. She insists that the truth hasn't changed. But her words, they carry a bizarre weight, a chilling power that goes far beyond simple comfort. It's like they're sinking into his very soul. She pulls his face to hers, and they kiss deeply, as she reminds him that he is her Yoon Sojun. Back with our hero, he pulls open the front door, and standing right there on the porch is the exact person he was waiting for. A man in a suit, a government man. It's clear he and Jihan have some history. The visitor's name is Park Yoon-sik, the department manager for the BattleNet, in all of South Korea. In the original timeline, after Yoon Sojun bailed, the department ghosted them, but this time, Jihan made a splash so big that they had no choice but to finally acknowledge his existence. Yet, even as the government suits stopped showing up, this one man took the time to genuinely look after him and Saya. And now, the stage has been meticulously set, every key player is in position, and it's time for Jihan to start claiming everything he's owed. The three of them sit down, and Yoon-sik dives straight into the deep end. He's fully aware that bringing the Sword King back is a lost cause, and the government knows it too, but they can't afford for that reality to hit the public just yet. The Korea versus Japan match is just around the corner, and they need national morale at an all-time high. Jihan can already see the strings being pulled. He cuts the man off, telling Yoon-sik to stop dancing around the issue and just spit it out. What they're really after is for Jihan to reverse the donation of the Sword Palace, because if the government officially accepts his donation, it's a public announcement that the Sword King is never coming home. Yoon-sik is stunned that Jihan dissected their entire political gambit that effortlessly. For a second, even he starts to buy into the hype that Jihan has been reborn as someone else entirely. The Jihan he knew was a deadbeat alcoholic, with a crippling gambling addiction. Shaking off his astonishment, Yoon-sik admits Jihan is right, but clarifies that they're still holding out a sliver of hope for the Sword King's return. So, instead of a full reversal, the government proposes a different angle: co-signed management. This means the official ownership would transfer, but both parties would have a joint say in all matters concerning the palace. It's their political workaround, a way to stay ready just in case the Sword King ever makes a miraculous comeback. The government also insists that the two of them must continue to live in the Sword Palace, which, at the end of the day, frames this as a perfect win-win situation. Yoon-sik slides a thick document across the table, outlining the fine print of the deal. He pushes them to look it over carefully, stressing how much thought and planning went into this proposal. Honestly, Jihan was prepared to just hand the whole thing over, but if they're offering a deal this sweet, it's an even bigger win for him. But there's a catch. In return for his cooperation, Jihan has a little favor of his own to ask. Some time blows by after that meeting, and back in the BattleNet, another chaotic match is about to kick off. A streamer who calls himself Golden Light fires up his broadcast. Instantly, thousands of viewers pour into the battle tube, eager to watch the show. The streamer poses dramatically atop the massive Colosseum statue, hyping up his audience as players begin to materialize in the arena below. With a flashy leap, Golden Light drops into the fray, keeping up his high-energy commentary for his fans. A huge donation alert pops up, telling him to teach these Bronze League scrubs a lesson. Everyone else in the lobby just rolls their eyes as Golden Light breaks into a cringy dance to thank his supporter. Yeah, they are definitely not as thrilled to have him in their game as his fanboys are. That's because hidden beneath that glittery, innocent smile are some seriously twisted intentions. He blew up as a streamer thanks to his pretty boy looks and over-the-top personality, but he's infamous for being a massive troll. He was once a high-ranking gold player, but he deliberately threw his games to get demoted to bronze, all for the sake of content he calls deep-sea traveling. He couldn't care less about winning. His only goal is to cause chaos and have fun at others' expense, making him the ultimate troll, despite slumming it in the lowest league. His gear and stats are still gold tier, making him notorious for hunting and humiliating bronze players who stand absolutely no chance against him. Now that he's here, with his rabid fans watching, it's time for Golden Light to find his first piece of content for the day. His gaze sweeps across the sea of players, and suddenly, his eyes lock onto a golden opportunity. Without a moment's hesitation, Golden Light sprints over to Jihan, microphone already in hand, ready to interview the man who has become the hottest topic online. By now, Jihan has collected a ton of nicknames, and the entire community has been obsessed with him. Jihan, however, has absolutely no clue who this sparkly dude is. Obviously some kind of BattleTube streamer, and he's way, way too loud for Jihan's taste. But then, a thought strikes him. There are still quite a few BattleTube achievements he hasn't unlocked yet. Since the opportunity basically just fell into his lap, Jihan figures he might as well start his own stream. He completely ignores the shiny loudmouth and casually summons his own BattleTube interface, hitting the Go Live button. Golden Light's own viewers spot the on-air icon flare to life above Jihan's head and realize the main character himself is streaming. Immediately, they begin ditching Golden Light's channel to watch Jihan's. Our radiant boy starts to tremble as the horrifying realization dawns on him. He just gave Jihan a free promotion to his entire audience. With his viewer count nosediving, he desperately needs to pull a stunt to win them back. As his mind races, a notification pings. It's a quest from a user with a name that screams, Sword King Stan. The objective: hunt down C1 Jihan and kill him, so he finishes in dead last. The prize for pulling it off is a whopping 2,000 GP. 1 GP is worth about 1,001, so this is literally a 2,000,001 bounty, and the people funding this hit are none other than the salty members of the Sword King family. When Golden Light hesitates for a split second, other members of the Sword King family start piling on, driving the reward higher and higher. Jihan was well aware these guys had it out for him, but he never could have fathomed the sheer intensity of their hatred. The bounty just keeps escalating, blasting past the 30,000 GP mark in a flash. It even surges to a staggering 40,000 GP, but, in a brutal twist of fate, the remaining players are suddenly teleported away. This abruptly halts the donations, locking the final bounty in at 42,000 GP, a truly mind-blowing fortune. Golden Light is still fuming that the prize money capped out under 50,000, that is, until a member of the Sword King family sweetens the deal, offering an extra 10,000 GP if he can successfully put Jihan in the dirt. That finally lights a fire under Golden Light, his eyes now locked on his target. The second the match kicks off, Golden Light instantly crouches, preparing to blitz an oblivious Jihan. He activates a skill named Charge, a move that launches the user's body forward at blinding velocity. He explodes off the line, and in a flash, he's already behind Jihan, sword held high for the kill. The blade swings down, but Jihan effortlessly parries the blow, not even breaking a sweat. And of course, he's rocking another one of his bizarre weapons. This time, it's a meat tenderizer from a cooking set, and it's some kind of D-rank extraterrestrial holy relic. Jihan is actually stunned that even with his full power swing, Golden Light's sword didn't shatter into a million pieces. Since it's come to this, Jihan decides to show some courtesy and summons a sword of his own. Within moments, Jihan dismantles Golden Light with clean, deadly efficient strikes, and the casters are losing their minds. He's wielding sword chi, something that should be flat out impossible for a Bronze League player. Not only that, he's channeling white sacred flames, a divine power. But wait, if he's using divine power, that would make him a support class. No matter how he pulled it off, Jihan scores first blood, and he did it all with a D-rank holy kitchen knife. That's also from that same divine cooking set. But even though he was just taken out in the most humiliating way possible, Golden Light isn't quite done yet. He somehow pops right back to life, all thanks to a little item in his inventory, called the Crucifix of Revival. It's a one-time use get-out-of-jail-free card, but it's banned in national leagues, promo games, and guild matches. But even though he's back on his feet, it's a pointless move. The whole mission wasn't just to kill Jihan, it was to guarantee he finished in last place. And since Golden Light died first, Jihan is now safe from that fate. Despite the crew's obvious frustration, Golden Light is dead set on reclaiming his honor by taking down Song Jihan. Too bad for him, Song Jihan is just as determined to permanently wipe that smug look off this golden boy's face. In a blink, Jihan drops him a second time, casually snagging a double kill before turning his back on the dying streamer. He briefly considers the item the guy just used. In his timeline, no one used it because the revival had some serious glitches. That thought aside, the arena feels way more intense than usual today. It's probably because of the special guests watching the match. Today's audience is packed with elves, and it looks like every single one of them is laser-focused on Jihan. Our MC has zero love for them, considering the massive role the elves played in humanity's eventual ruin. For now, there's nothing he can do about them, so his best option is to concentrate on the players standing, right in front of him. But it seems the other players are keeping a wide berth, almost, like they're treating him as some kind of plague. The moment he glances their way, they all scatter in terror. You can't blame them. He just tore a gold-ranked player to shreds twice. They know they don't stand a chance. This is actually bad for our MC. It means his hunting efficiency is about to tank, right after he finally scored a D-rank holy item. 2. To awaken the full potential of these items, he desperately needs to get into more fights. As he's wondering what his next move is, a notification flashes in his status window. A slow grin spreads across Jihan's face. Looks like his luck is about to change. He just received a quest to eliminate the goblins that are swarming the goblin champion. This is perfect. Now he can hit his combat quota, even with all the other players avoiding him like the plague. Suddenly, he's mobbed by a horde of goblins, looking hopelessly outnumbered. But in the next instant, the tables turn, and it's the goblins who are fleeing for their lives. As he rushes them with terrifying speed, the monsters shriek for help, while getting pummeled and stabbed by Jihan's kitchenware. All this relentless fighting finally causes the holy cooking set to hum with power. It's a good thing. He actually bothered to read the item descriptions before jumping into the fight. The instructions were specific: crush their heads and gouge out their hearts, and it had to be done in that exact sequence for the items to properly activate and sync with him. He's just glad he figured all this out before the match ended. But man, this whole process is taking forever. If he had caught on just a little sooner, there would have been a few more goblins left for him to test his weapons on. But hey, it's not a total loss yet. There's still one goblin remaining, and this one is a whole different level of threat. This monster is the goblin champion. Compared to the regular grunts, he's an absolute unit. But for all its size and raw power, a single clean strike from the cooking club sends the goblin champion sprawling across the dirt. Jihan immediately exploits the opening, plunging his blade straight through its heart. Turns out, it was just a big-boned goblin. And with that, the quest is officially cleared, rewarding him with a cool 500 achievement points. He also snags 1 point of divine power in the process. But heavy use has taken its toll. The weapon's rank plummets to E. That means he can only farm divine power from it one more time. And honestly, monster hunting is way too slow. Nah, he's got to start hunting players instead. The problem is, they're all scattered, so if they won't come to him, he'll just have to bring the fight to them. The casters, who've been dead silent watching this whole thing unfold, finally break their silence, freaking out about how terrifying Jihan looks right now. But among everyone glued to the stream, there's one guy who is absolutely losing his mind over what he's seeing. It's Golden Light. He's hate watching Jihan's stream, and his eyes lock onto a single comment claiming Jihan is 1,000 times better than him. And while the trash talk stings, he's way more fixated on the absolute monster Jihan has become. Based on the goblin fight, the system crunched the numbers on his estimated stats. His average strength is hovering around 35. For context, the average Bronze League player caps out at 25. Jihan is a full 10 points above the curve, and none of it adds up. It gets so bad that Golden Light starts convincing himself Jihan must be using hacks as he collapses onto his bed, stewing in his own failure. And speaking of that cracked-out main character, the sounds of panicked screams suddenly blast from his monitor. He snaps his head up just in time to see Jihan smash his club into some poor dude's face, ending him in seconds. In a flash, Jihan takes on a whole squad of players at once, and this brawl is a complete one-sided slaughter. He's effortlessly mowing down player after player, shrinking the lobby down to a handful of survivors. The remaining players finally get it. This is not the time to be fighting each other. This is the time to team up. They have to take down this hacker. A mage and an archer are the first to form a temporary alliance. They try to lay into Jihan, but he casually blocks or deflects every single attack they throw at him. After a minute, they just stop. Realizing nothing they do even scratches him, they drop their weapons and just stare at this absolute beast, completely defeated. Then, he walks over and puts them out of their misery. With a final tally of 10 kills, Jihan's chat is going absolutely ballistic. They just witnessed him solo the entire lobby. And thanks to that massive kill count, the cooking set flares with power again, granting him another point of divine power. But then the items degrade one last time, hitting F rank. They're basically useless now. He also unlocks a hidden quest for getting 10 kills in the Colosseum. The reward? A fat bonus of 5,000 additional achievement points. With divine power and achievement points secured, Jihan has basically gotten everything he came for, but he's still missing one piece of the puzzle. He needs a massive, undeniable power-up to push his stats to the absolute limit, and that's when he sees it. He's been given an epic quest. The objective: find the Shadow Queen hiding near the spectators in the Colosseum and provoke her. An epic quest. Something like this should never appear in the Bronze League, but the rewards are insane. 50,000 achievement points. Not to mention gaining the personal interest of the constellation, the Shadow Queen. A constellation isn't just a player, it's an absolute being representing a star. They are basically the gods of BattleNet, and getting a constellation's interest is like landing a divine sponsor. They grant you access to abilities that a normal player could only dream of obtaining. This feels like something that should only be possible in the Diamond League, but it's happening to him right now. If that's the play, then he has to meet the Shadow Queen, no matter what it takes. If he can get even one of these beings on his side, the other constellations will start taking notice too. The only problem is the sheer number of elves staring down at him from the stands. How is he supposed to find the Shadow Queen in that crowd? Meanwhile, back in the real world, Jihan's performance is sending shockwaves everywhere. A 10-kill record in the Colosseum? That's a first in the entire country since the legend Yoon Se-jin. News of his feat explodes. It rips across social media, and as a result, he gains something like 10,000 new subscribers overnight. His streams now pull in up to 4,000 concurrent viewers. Even the members of the Sword King family, who were praying for his downfall, have suddenly become his biggest fans. And all that old resentment? It's now aimed squarely at Golden Light. He accidentally became the stepping stone for Jihan's meteoric rise to fame, and now his own reputation is completely in the toilet. After everything that just went down, he's scrambling, desperately trying to figure out how to salvage his career. With his options basically at zero, Golden Light makes a choice. If you can't beat him, join him. He's jumping on the Seong Jihan hype train, and is officially on board as a supporter. From this moment on, Golden Light is determined to become Seong Jinhan's personal editor and launch him into BattleTube stardom. Back at the Sword Palace, Seiya is just staring at her uncle, utterly speechless after witnessing the massacre he orchestrated that afternoon. She can't wrap her head around how monstrously strong he's become. It got to a point where she actually felt sorry for the other players. This was less of a match and more like high-level griefing. An avalanche of people were also desperate to donate to Jihan's stream, but his donation link was completely disabled. That's what happens when you decide to go live on a total whim without setting anything up first. Seiya gives Jihan some solid advice. He needs to crank up the minimum donation fee. The constant pop-ups will make it impossible for him to concentrate if they keep pouring in. So the best move is to set it sky high to filter out the noise. Jihan totally agrees and cranks it up to 10,000 GP, which is a wild 10 million won. While Seiya is wondering if that's a bit too much, Jihan's mind is already consumed by the Shadow Queen epic quest he just landed. He needs to track down this shadowy figure and deliberately provoke her, but he has zero clue how to find her in this colossal crowd. Seiya catches the intensely focused look on his face and offers her help. Her can-do attitude is a spitting image of her mother's, and Jihan can't help but smile. A little help couldn't hurt. He stands up, ready to unload what's been weighing on him. He breaks down the details of the epic quest and the mysterious Shadow Queen, and even she's completely in the dark about who that could be. The only concrete fact they have is that she's somewhere in the stadium. So, Seiya decides to start scrubbing through match replays, meticulously scanning the audience for any sign of their target. With her on the case, things are bound to go smoother, but Jihan still feels a pang of guilt for dragging her into this mess. Locating the Shadow Queen was going to be like finding a needle in a universe-sized haystack, but now that she's completely absorbed in her task, he finally has a clear window to handle the settlements that he's been putting off. Cashing in the mountain of achievement points he's accumulated, he purchases another class slot, and now it's time for a major power-up. He's presented with 3 paths to choose from: Warrior, Archer, and Mage. Out of the 3, he locks in his decision to become a Mage. The instant he confirms the new class, he feels a completely new kind of power surging from the depths of his heart. It's a far cry from divine power, and it unlocks a whole new set of abilities for him. The whole strategy behind picking the Mage class right after the Supporter class was to chase a very unique stat that can only be awakened by possessing both. This new power is called Force. Before he regressed, he remembered a night listening to a completely wasted Baron ramble. During one of his drunken tirades, he spewed a ton of useless info at Jihan, like the fact that he would have considered Jihan a true American if he'd just gotten naturalized earlier. But that night, he also let something truly extraordinary slip. He talked about his ultimate skill, Force, which he created by flawlessly merging divine power with mana. It's an impossible feat for anyone else, and no other player could even dream of trying it, since Baron was the only player in the entire world rocking 2 classes. This was a power no one else could ever get their hands on, and Baron's secret was that he possessed 2 separate status windows, which was his SSS rank gift. Jihan had originally questioned if it was even okay for him to be hearing this classified information, but at the end of the day, Baron could brag to literally anyone on the planet, confident in his untouchable status because, as far as he knew, he was the only being alive who could wield 2 classes. He was dripping with arrogance, but the dude wasn't lying. Force is a game-breaking power that warps the very fabric of space, but Baron's monopoly on that ability is officially over. Jihan has figured out the requirements, and now, he's met every single one. This power is the very thing that catapulted Baron to the #1 world ranking, even with his garbage tier control. So if Jihan wants to survive, what's coming? He absolutely has to claim this power for himself, no matter what it takes. To seize it, he must concentrate divine energy into his palms and then channel the raw flow of mana from his heart, forcing the 2 volatile energies to collide and merge in his hands. If he can forge a perfect union with 0 leakage, he'll have done it. For a split second, it seems to ignite, but the swirling vortex of power in his hand detonates, launching him backwards into a wall. Welp, so much for that attempt. Clearly, he can't contain this raw energy with sheer strength alone. He's missing something fundamental, maybe more mana, or a higher level, but a key ingredient is definitely absent. The core issue is that his hands just can't serve as a permanent container for this power. So maybe the problem isn't his hands, but the location he's trying to forge it in. Since his hands are a no-go, the next logical step is to turn his entire body into the crucible. If he can, instead, fuse the divine power, originating from his upper dantian, with the mana bubbling up from his central dantian, he can then use the power from his lower dantian as an anchor, stabilizing the 2 energies whenever they threaten to rip each other apart. This should create a flawless internal circuit, with absolutely nothing escaping. If he compresses it within that perfect loop, that should be the key to unlocking this new power. He decides to go all in, and the backlash that rips through his body is astronomical. He can't stop a gut-wrenching scream from tearing out of his throat as the raw energy floods every cell. A system notification flashes into existence, announcing that he has begun the unification of the 3 dantians. But then, a split second later, a horrifying warning blares in his vision. He has rocketed past the physical limits he can withstand. If he keeps going, he will die. Downstairs, Seiya hears her uncle's blood-curdling screams as the agony overwhelms him, and she shoots up from her seat to find out what's wrong. Meanwhile, Jihan is still being torn apart by the immense pain of fusing the 3 dantians. To pull this off, and meld divine power with mana to create force, he has to subconsciously tap into his strength just to hold them together. The conditions for this unification are insanely strict. You have to perfectly control 3 energies with completely different properties. On top of that, every single one of your stats needs to be at least 100 just to make the process survivable. If you're nowhere near that benchmark and you try this little stunt, you're basically signing your own death warrant. Seiya sprints toward her uncle's room as his agonizing cries grow louder and more desperate. She yells his name as she barrels down the hall, but gets no response. Finally, she throws the door open to find him, surprisingly, looking completely fine. He tries to claim he was screaming like that over a simple headache, but it's painfully obvious that something way worse was just going down. She is not buying his story for a second, even as he tries to laugh it off. And Jihan finally drops the act when he sees that his little joke has made her genuinely upset. Suddenly, Seiya's eyes well up with tears as she tells him she was truly terrified for him. She thought something awful had happened, which is why she booked it to his room in a total panic. It finally hits Jihan that he completely screwed up by not considering Seiya's feelings, but now that he seems to be in one piece, she asks him again, seriously this time, if he's really okay. He decides to get real with her, and assures her that he's fine. Then he apologizes for making her worry so much. Seiya wipes the tears from her face, and then gives him a light smack on the chest, trying to act tough now that she knows he's safe. With that, she heads off to continue her search for the Shadow Queen, and Jihan just watches her go with a warm smile. Yeah, for Seiya's sake, he definitely can't afford to show that kind of weakness too often. Anyway, back to business. The consolidation of the 3 dantians was a failure, because he lacked the raw experience and the proper level. But here's the kicker, even though he failed, he still got the power he was after. By forcing a fusion between divine power and mana, Jihan has successfully converted them into that one-of-a-kind stat, Force. The link connecting the 3 dantians is hanging on by a thread, but it's there. However, Scrolling through his status window reveals something super weird. The number next to his force stat makes no sense. He literally just got this skill, but it's kicking off at level 12. Because that link between the Dantians is so incredibly weak, it seems his martial power and force stats are being forced to share their numerical values. This means that for every single point he sinks into martial power, his force stat gets a free ride to the top. He gambles by bumping his martial power to level 14, and just as he suspected, the force stat instantly mirrors it, jumping to level 14. This is basically an infinite power glitch. Just having a high force stat is already ridiculously OP, but now he's discovered a way to level it up on demand. If he's getting perks this broken from a janky, unstable link, he can't even begin to imagine the god-tier benefits he'll unlock by fully merging his 3 Dantians. As hyped as he is for the massive power spike, he knows he needs to hit the brakes for now. Attempting to unify them again could literally get him killed. He's already secured a major win, so there's no reason to push his luck and risk it all. With that settled, he decides to test drive his new mage class. He calls out for a fireball, and a pathetic little flame sputters into existence as the system informs him he lacks the necessary mana to cast anything serious. The spark is almost comically tiny. It wouldn't even scare off a fly in a real battle. The next morning, Jihan is jolted awake by sunlight streaming through his window. The moment his eyes flutter open, a system notification pops up. He's gained 10 divine power. But there's a catch. He can no longer farm divine power from holy items that are D rank or lower. From this point forward, only holy items that are C rank or higher will give him a boost. The night before, he had snagged 2 new items and slept with them right beside him, banking on a huge power-up. But it seems the game's difficulty has just been cranked up on him. Now, his only option is to flip his remaining low-tier gear on the second-hand market to make some quick cash. He steps out of his room and calls for Saya to see if she's up. Silence. He heads downstairs to investigate and finds her glued to the couch, earbuds in and laser-focused on her laptop. The dark circles under her eyes and her exhausted posture tell the whole story. She pulled an all-nighter, and she confirms she spent every waking moment digging for information on the Shadow Queen. And while Jihan feels a sting of guilt for making her grind so hard, it looks like her efforts weren't for nothing. She shows him a video from a channel called Another Species Fancam, which is a BattleTube channel that hyperfixates on the non-human spectators who show up to watch the games. The streamers use a unique gift called Scope, which lets them get insane zoom-ins with their cameras. And because of them, Saya might have just cracked the case. In the replay footage from Jihan's recent match, she points to the VIP section. High above the arena, seated on what look like custom-made thrones, are 2 elven women who absolutely radiate main character energy. One of them, in particular, is a dark elf who carries herself with the unmistakable air of royalty. Jihan has to admit, the evidence is compelling, but he cautions that they can't jump to conclusions just yet. Undeterred, Saya declares she's going to keep digging to see if she can uncover anything more concrete from other match recordings. Jihan, however, remains skeptical, thinking that a hidden constellation wouldn't expose themselves so easily. But Saya promises him she'll expand her search, combing through more videos, even checking international streams. Starting the next day, her tone shifting to sound almost like a professional analyst. She even offers to edit his gameplay footage, so he can upload it to BattleTube, mentioning she learned the basics from watching her dad's old videos for fun. The mention of her father makes Jihan's blood run cold, his thoughts immediately snapping back to the Sword King. He still can't wrap his head around how a man could just abandon his own daughter for no apparent reason. It was just 2 days ago, during a conversation with Unsik, that a government contact dropped a bombshell. They might finally have a name for the woman who poached the Sword King. Her name is Ito Shizuru, and she's the wielder of an SSS rank gift ominously named a woman of matchless beauty. The government's working theory is that Un Sojin was helplessly enchanted by her skill. This was a shocking revelation for Jihan, but the insane details didn't end there. Unsik warned Jihan that this matchless beauty skill is far more sinister than simple mind control. It has the power to completely rewrite a person's personality and beliefs. History shows a disturbing pattern where Korea's rising stars suddenly and inexplicably defect to Japan. It's highly likely her gift has no restrictions, which means she could appear at any moment and attempt to brainwash another powerful player. After hearing that, Jihan desperately scoured the web for any information on Ito Shizuru, but it was as if she never existed. The internet was wiped clean. It's obvious the Japanese government is carefully managing their trump card. Because of this ironclad secrecy, Jihan is at a dead end for now, but if Park Yoon-sik's intel is solid, then Jihan needs to be on high alert. There's a terrifying possibility that his enemies have already made their move, and as that chilling thought settles in his mind, a passenger jet breaks through the clouds, beginning its descent into a Korean airport. Model. The jet is officially flagged as belonging to the Neo Self-Defense Force, and as the days tick by, the stage is set for the next massive showdown. Back in their high-rise fortress, Seiya nervously taps her foot by the door, waiting for her uncle, who's taking forever to get ready. They're cutting it dangerously close to being late, but finally, Jihan emerges from his room. He steps out looking completely transformed, his hair slicked back and styled, rocking a seriously sharp suit. Dressed like this, he's projecting pure power, absolutely ready to face their incoming guests. They both step into the elevator. On the descent, you can see Seiya is practically trembling. Jihan tries to calm her down, telling her to just breathe and let him handle things, but her nerves are completely fried. This is the first time she's facing the public since the whole disaster with her dad went down. Jihan tells her straight up, who cares what they think? They've done nothing wrong, so they have zero reason to hide. The elevator doors slide open to the Sword Palace lobby, and they're immediately swarmed by a massive crowd that's been waiting for them. Park Yoon-sik is there to greet them, confirming that everything Jihan requested is locked and loaded. They can proceed and kick things off immediately. Jihan gives the advisor a nod of thanks, trusting him to manage the event from here on out. This was the huge favor Jihan called in when they were hashing out the future of the Sword King's title and all his assets. Jihan had orchestrated a grand auction of the Sword King's private collection, putting all of Yoon Se-gyeon's prized possessions on the block. But this auction wasn't about money. The entire spectacle was a carefully crafted trap designed to bait Japan into showing their hand. Jihan even handpicked the items with that single, deadly purpose in mind, with the main prize being Yoon Se-gyeon's own battle connector. It contains every scrap of his legendary combat data. If Japan makes a move, that's the holy grail they'll be gunning for. There's even a wild chance the Sword King himself might crash the party to reclaim his battle connector. But whatever happens, the people of Korea will be forced to confront the cold, hard truth. Their hero, the Sword King, is gone, and he's almost certainly never coming back. Yoon-sik absorbs Jihan's chillingly precise plan, thinking it's like the kid can literally see the future. This is their one shot to flip the public narrative, so Jihan gives a critical order. Make sure the reporters are laser-focused on one particular spot, the table reserved for the Neo Self-Defense Force. As they cross the lobby, a group of people crashes through the entrance, screaming for Seiya to stop what she's doing. The bodyguards immediately intercept them, but the group shouts that they're Seiya's family, that they're related to her by blood. It's her aunts and uncles, and they've shown up to cause a scene. They're here to shut down the auction and stop her from selling off the Sword King's precious legacy, loudly accusing Jihan of forcing her into this whole thing. The insults keep flying, painting Jihan as some kind of monster, but Seiya cuts them off. She steps forward, her voice ringing with ice. After all, these are the same relatives who were exiled from the Sword Palace. They were thrown out for using her dad's name to scam people. She sees right through their act. They've only crawled out of the woodwork because they smell money now that her father is gone. She is in complete control. Everything her dad left behind now belongs to her, and these vultures have absolutely no right to challenge her claim. She knows arguing is pointless, and with a final, dismissive look, she turns her back on them. She commands the guards to get them out of her sight, immediately. The relatives are still screaming and struggling as they're dragged away. Jihan flashes Seiya a proud smirk, impressed by how she just handled that. She's forged herself into steel after everything she's endured. The three of them finally enter the main hall where the auction is being held, and the place is an absolute circus, swarming with journalists. On top of them are all the high rollers interested in the auction items. The second they appear, a wall of camera flashes, explodes, and reporters start shouting questions. They completely mob Seiya, shoving microphones in her face and snapping endless photos. They don't even leave a second for anyone to breathe, let alone answer. Fed up with the chaos, Jihan's eyes glow, and with a surge of power, every single camera lens in the room shatters. Silence. The reporters are stunned. Now that the noise is gone, Jihan calmly reminds them that this is an auction, not a goddamn press conference. With the room now deathly quiet, he signals that the event is about to begin. 3 legendary items are up for grabs tonight. First up, Yoon Se-gyeon's personal BattleNet connector, a device that reduces pain perception by a staggering 99%. It also comes fully loaded with every bit of combat data the Sword King ever recorded. And finally, a complete battle analysis. This is Yoon Se-gyeon's own breakdown of every high-ranking player in East Asia. The Sword King's data is priceless, and that strategic analysis is a game-changer, especially with the epic Korea versus Japan tournament looming on the horizon. Jihan can hear the greedy whispers spreading through the crowd. Nobody here is willing to let these treasures slip through their fingers. Data analysis on a top-tier player isn't something you can just get off the street. The second Jihan finishes speaking, a hand shoots up from the audience, and Jihan instantly recognizes the face. The man introduces himself as Takeda Kazuo, the head recruitment manager for Japan's Neo Self-Defense Force. He throws down an insane offer of 5 billion yen for every single lot in the auction. But there's a catch. He also demands a private meeting with both Jihan and Seiya. The guy isn't even trying to be slick about it. His true intentions are practically written on his forehead. Jihan has zero interest in playing these little games. He tells the man to spit it out, right here, in front of everybody. Given all the chaos that's gone down recently, this is definitely not the time to be accepting shady backroom meetings. Takeda starts sweating bullets, nervously dabbing his brow under the sheer intensity of Jihan's death glare. He fires back a weak warning, telling our MC that if he keeps up this hostile attitude, someone else might have to intervene. In a flash, the bodyguard who had been standing silently behind Takeda explodes forward. She closes the distance in an instant, pressing the cold steel of her blade against Jihan's neck. Her name is Shadow, and while she's no sword king, she is an unbelievably skilled player. Their threat is about as subtle as a freight train, but Jihan remains completely unfazed by this blatant Yunseijin knockoff. What happens next is a blur. 1 second, Shadow's blade is at Jihan's throat. The next, our MC lands a clean punch straight to her jaw, sending her stumbling backward. She's stunned for a moment before pure rage takes over, and she prepares to unleash her sword intent for a real fight. But Jihan just calmly places a hand on her shoulder and hits her with a reality check. The auction is being live-streamed worldwide on his battle tube. There is no way she can make a move, with the entire world watching. Takeda quickly tries to defuse the situation with a forced laugh and a dismissive wave of his hand. He then offers a half-hearted apology for his bodyguard's aggressiveness, speaking on her behalf. But even after all that, he doubles down on the 5 billion yen offer, insisting that the price tag must include that private meeting he demanded. Only this time, he wants an answer directly from Seiya. He argues that the Sword King's legacy items technically belong to her now, making her the true owner of this entire auction. He strolls right past Jihan and gets directly in Seiya's face, letting her know this private meeting is specifically for her. "Surely you want to know where your father is," he says, promising to answer any question she has about him. As Seiya hesitates, Takeda looks completely confident, totally sure that she's going to accept. There's no chance she'd refuse an offer to finally speak to her own father. And yet, despite his smug certainty, she flat out rejects him. The refusal hits Takeda so hard, he looks like he's about to glitch out. He cannot process that she would walk away from 5 billion yen, the equivalent of 50 billion, won in Korean currency over a meeting. As life-changing as that money would be, she knows Jihan is right. Things are too dangerous right now to be reckless. And if the only way to get in touch with her father is through a massive bribe, then Seiya wants absolutely nothing to do with him. Besides, she's a minor. She has to follow Jihan's lead anyway. You can hear a collective sigh of relief from the rest of the audience, who thought all of these priceless items were about to be sold off to Japan. But they can't let their guard down yet. Even without the meeting, the Neo Self-Defense Force can still just throw an absurd amount of cash at the problem. Takeda takes a deep breath and accepts her rejection of the private meeting. But then he pulls a fast one. He's still bidding the 5 billion yen. He claims the private meeting was just a personal add-on he threw in. There's no reason for him to retract the bid, because his orders were to offer 5 billion from the very beginning. Orders that came from the Sword King himself. To prove it, he hands Seiya a letter from Yunseijin, one that he supposedly wrote just for her. The letter is stamped with a seal from an Ito Ryuhei, and just seeing this new name crushes Seiya's spirit. While Seiya is clutching the letter, Takeda turns and taunts the crowd of Korean BattleNet representatives, asking if any of them have deep enough pockets to challenge his bid. Jihan knows this guy's playbook inside and out. This recruitment manager for the Neo Self-Defense Force was a man so infamous he was banned from entering the US in Jihan's previous life. His knack for poaching foreign players was unnatural, earning him the title Japan's Calamity. There's a very high probability that he's deeply connected to the player who uses the Woman of Matchless Beauty skill. Jihan knows he has to watch this guy like a hawk. But according to the rules of the auction, with a price no one else can possibly match, Jihan's hands are tied. He has to sign the contract. The tension in the room is suffocating. Japan just claimed all these items, and it all happened way too easily. It's almost as if they were promised the items from the get-go. The optics on this are terrible, and everyone else is starting to question why they even bothered showing up. At this point, Jihan is praying for something, anything, to happen. He's desperate for a plot twist to flip the entire script. Then, like an answer to his prayers, Seiya strides up to the microphone. She starts reading a letter from Ryuhei, broadcasting his private words for the entire world to hear, including the thousands of viewers glued to Jihan's live stream. He brings up the fact that he heard she was planning to just give away the sword, Palace, and his disappointment is practically dripping from the page. Then he drops the bomb. 5 billion yen is the last dime she'll ever get from him, and it's also the official nail in the coffin of their father-daughter relationship. As she reads the final, brutal words, Tears start streaming down her face, confirming the letter's authenticity with his all-too-familiar handwriting. Jihan has to look away as his niece breaks down. On that stage, he knows the woman of matchless beauty skill is a wicked form of mind control, a tier above even mental conquest. It has to be the reason Yoon Se-gyeon would so heartlessly abandon his own child. Jihan had always despised the man, but he couldn't deny that, if nothing else, he had been an amazing, devoted father to Seiya. To think Ryuhei would stoop this low is unthinkable. But then, Seiya's tears stop. In a flash, she shreds the letter into confetti. She then orders Takeda to deliver a message to Ryuhei. She's received his payment, and she's thrilled to finally cut him out of her life. With that savage move done, she realizes that all those tiny pieces of paper are going to be a nightmare for the cleaning crew. Jihan just smirks and tells her not to sweat it, and with a flick of his wrist, uses his force skill to gather every last scrap before incinerating them with a burst of flame. Hold up fire? That's a pure mage skill, which sends a wave of confusion through the crowd as they try to process Jihan's powers. This guy is known to have the combat prowess of a warrior, the mana reserves of a mage, and the divine energy of a support class. Staring at this absolute powerhouse, Takeda comes to a stunning conclusion. This is a man that Japan needs to get on its side. But Takeda isn't the only shark that smells blood in the water. Recruiters from every corner of the venue swarm him, shoving their business cards in his face, knowing he's a free agent, and they are absolutely desperate to sign him. Jihan is instantly swallowed by the mob, all of them clamoring for his attention, and as he's trying to push them back, Seiya calls out to him. His first instinct is to tell her to hang on for a minute, but then he sees her face. She looks ghostly pale. A moment later, she sways, then crumples to the floor, completely unconscious. Forgetting everyone, Jihan bulldozes through the crowd and rushes to Seiya, frantically gathering her into his arms. She finally stirs, weakly calling his name. He tells her to just hold on, that he's rushing her to the hospital, but she yanks him closer, whispering that the whole thing is an act. She saw he was getting mobbed, so she decided to create a massive diversion. The guards manage to push back the recruiters while Jihan plays the part of the distraught uncle. Now that he knows she's okay, he can finally breathe again. But the same can't be said for the thousands of people watching the stream. They're witnessing Jihan's panicked state and are placing 100% of the blame squarely on Ito Ryuhei, that monster who crushed her spirit with that vile letter. Now that he has the perfect out, Jihan kills the stream, using his niece's medical emergency as the ultimate excuse. He helps her to her feet, and she confirms she wants to head back to the penthouse and get some rest. As they're making their escape, Takeda makes one last-ditch effort, holding out his card and asking for a proper meeting later on. Jihan doesn't even spare it a glance. He uses his force skill to snatch the card from Takeda's hand and disintegrates it into dust right in front of him. That's Jihan's final answer to Takeda. The head of recruitment for the fourth most powerful guild on the planet just got utterly humiliated by a Korean bronze rank player. There's no way Takeda isn't absolutely livid. Or at least, he would be if he wasn't such a massive creep. The man just adjusts his tie, a weirdly intense smile spreading across his face, as he processes what just happened. Jihan has true, undeniable power, the kind that can rip a card from his hand and destroy it in a flash. That single display of power makes him an S-tier target, and the fact that he's still a bronze player, it means he's a rising supernova, destined for legendary status. This revelation only fuels Takeda's obsession to recruit Jihan, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, in the safety of the corridor, Seiya and her uncle share a triumphant high five for their Oscar-worthy performance. As they're joking on their way to the elevator, Jihan gets a notification for a massive donation. He checks the message attached, and it's from none other than Takeda. The guy somehow found a way to donate even after the stream was shut down. And his message? It's so unbelievably creepy it makes Seiya's skin crawl, and Jihan's finger is literally hovering over the block button, even after the guy dropped such a fat donation on him. But their back and forth is shattered by a new voice echoing through the hall, calling out to both Jihan and Seiya. It's Haeyeon, with her bodyguard Guyong in tow. She introduces herself with a flourish as the head of the Divergent Guild's third department, and while she's flashing this polished, corporate smile, Guyong is straight up glaring daggers from behind her. She apologizes for what she calls a sudden ambush. Jihan isn't buying it for a second, pointing out that there's no way she should have been able to get in here, not unless she had some serious inside connections, but somehow she slipped past layers of security like a ghost. Then it hits him, her voice. It feels unnervingly familiar, triggering a sense of déjà vu he just can't shake. Haeyeon explains with a smirk that she has some very deep ties with the BattleNet department in South Korea. In other words, she used her connections to waltz right in. Her self-assurance is practically radiating off her, and that attitude, that almost shameless level of confidence. Jihan is positive he's encountered this exact energy before. As she keeps talking, the final puzzle piece clicks into place, and the memory slams into him. He knows her. from his past life, the woman who was always hidden behind a mask. Se-ah catches the gobsmacked look on Jihan's face and immediately assumes he's completely smitten with this newcomer. Jihan, however, is lost in thought, a wild theory taking root in his mind that he absolutely needs to test. He recites a quote he remembers hearing from her lips long ago, just to see her reaction. The world is full of possibility. It's a hard-to-miss line from the legendary writer Dostoevsky, a man infamous for his crippling gambling addiction. He looks her dead in the eye and asks if she likes the quote. Guyong immediately slides in front of Haeyeon, demanding to know who the hell Jihan thinks he is. See, Haeyeon's gambling fever is a top-tier secret, known only to her inner circle. No outsider should have a clue about it. And that's the final piece of confirmation Jihan was looking for. This proves it. Haeyeon is none other than America's first manager, Zero. In his past life, Zero was the only other Korean in the guild besides him, and he knew her well. He knew her specifically for her legendary love of drinking and gambling, but despite all that, she battled her way up to become the second-string guild master, all thanks to her powerful voice ability. At first, that skill could only grant simple experience buffs, but once the tutorial ended, the entire game system exploded, with gift rankings and stats scaling up like crazy. The voice ability suddenly transformed into a god-tier skill, and the undisputed queen among all voice users was Zero. Back in the present, however, Zero, now just Lee Haeyeon, is physically cringing in agony as her deepest secret is exposed. In front of total strangers, Jihan realizes the Divergent Guild has somehow managed to recruit both the Plum Blossom and Zero. That's an absolutely stacked roster for a team that's still in the tutorial phase. Thinking on his feet, Jihan throws up a smokescreen, claiming he recognized her from one of his live broadcasts. He plays it off, saying a comment she sent in the chat was so memorable that he just had to ask. Then he throws in an apology for startling them. Haeyeon clears her throat, desperate to steer the conversation away from this mortifying topic, as fast as humanly possible. As they talk, Jihan can't help but crack a smile at her antics, which only cements Se-ah's theory. Yep, he's totally falling for her. Sensing the shift in atmosphere, Haeyeon seizes the opportunity to approach Jihan with renewed confidence. She tells him she's got a feeling they'll be seeing each other a lot more often, then smoothly pulls out her phone and offers it to him. Her mission is crystal clear. She's here to recruit him for the Divergent Guild and wants to arrange another meeting between them, a private one. Se-ah can barely contain her squeal as she watches this drama unfold. Is she really about to get a new aunt out of nowhere? Even Haeyeon is feeling herself. She's certain she's made a killer impression, even casting a smug glance over at Gyeong, the very same bodyguard Jihan famously rejected. The whole power move would have been perfect, if not for one hilarious little problem. Jihan completely forgot his own phone number. He awkwardly turns to Se-ah, asking if she can just give out her number instead, but Se-ah totally misreads the signal. She thinks Jihan is just playing hard to get. That's not it at all, but in her mind, he's executing some kind of master plan. She decides to play the ultimate wingwoman, suddenly faking a dizzy spell and pretending to feel sick again. Taking the hint that she wants to leave, Jihan apologizes to the duo and asks Haeyeon for her business card instead. He promises he'll contact her later. With that, the uncle and niece resume their journey to the penthouse, all while Se-ah is convinced her uncle has secretly evolved into some kind of master playboy. As for Guyong and Haeyeon, they start heading out of the building, and the bodyguard is visibly shaking after that intense exchange. Haeyeon tells Guyong to just stop holding it in and laugh already, because she's about to get seriously pissed off. As for Jihan and Se-ah, as they ride the elevator back up to the penthouse, Se-ah can't help but notice how bizarre it is seeing her uncle rocking her dad's old clothes. Jihan just shrugs. It's not like he has a choice, since his own gear doesn't even fit him anymore. Besides, he argues, the threads themselves are innocent. The man who wore them was the real problem. And hey, as long as Jihan makes him look good, what's the harm? Then she switches gears, calling him out for that stunt he pulled earlier, telling some hottie he forgot his own phone number. Jihan is just drawing a total blank. He looks genuinely baffled as Se-ah lays into him, accusing him of playing her for a fool. But Jihan hits her with the truth. He seriously has no clue what his number is. He wasn't playing hard to get. Just then, the familiar alert chimes. It's time for another mission. And what do you know? It's another tower defense grind. Same old story. Guard the crystal and survive the incoming zombie horde. Jihan's head is totally not in the game. He's still reeling from spending ages trying to console Se-ah after she convinced herself she'd single-handedly torpedoed her uncle's love life. She'd completely misread the situation, thinking Jihan was crushing on Lee Hyun, when in reality, he wouldn't touch a high-stakes gambler like her with a 10-foot pole. But regardless of how he feels about her, he never, ever imagined he'd cross paths with Zero again like this. In his first life, they had forged an unbreakable bond. Two souls from the same homeland stuck in a strange new world. To kill the boredom on their off days, They'd blow cash betting on sports. For Zero, though, it wasn't just a pastime, it was an addiction. Even if she was on a massive losing streak, she just couldn't stop. It was during those times, when they were thick as thieves, that he first heard that cryptic quote she was so fond of. She also wore a scar across her face that she flat out refused to heal, calling it the price she paid for striking a deal with the devil. Even though they were just a couple of refugees, they had so much in common that a powerful friendship was inevitable. But the dark glue that truly held them together was a shared cocktail of crippling guilt, soul-crushing self-hatred, and the bitter regret of failing the ones they swore to protect. Jihan lowers his head, a tidal wave of agonizing memories crashing over him, but the explosion of comments flooding his stream jolts him back to the present. His viewers have spotted the massive sword gripped in his hand. This has to be the first remotely normal-looking weapon he's ever brought into the BattleNet since he first logged on. This beast is the C-rank Orc Pontiff's horse-slaying sword, and despite its rank, Jihan snagged it for an absolute steal. Now that he's actually holding the thing, he gets exactly why the price tag was so low. The blade is ridiculously massive and weighs a ton, unwieldy for most, but for him, it's a perfect fit. He gives it a test swing, getting a feel for its powerful balance. His viewers are absolutely losing their minds over his raw power. The demands start flooding in to show them his status window. They're desperate to finally get a peek at his class and stats. It seems like his audience is blowing up, and they're starting to ask for more. At this very moment, he has a whopping 12,000 live viewers. Jihan isn't sure he wants to just flash his stats for the whole world to see. But he can't just ghost his regulars. Since so many people are curious, he decides to be completely upfront about it. He fires up his mic to address them directly. He tells them he'll reveal his status window on one condition. They have to get his channel to 200,000 subscribers. That's a ridiculously ambitious goal, seeing as he's only sitting at 10,000 right now. But he promises he'll deliver once he hits that magic number. Then, to really spice things up, he adds another clause to the deal. He declares that if he ever fails to clutch a first-place victory from this moment on, he will immediately leak his own stats the second he loses. The gamble pays off. The chat explodes. Now, everyone is way more invested in this insane challenge than ever before. They're all convinced his game will be over the instant he gets queued up with a single troll. And speak of the devil, the three remaining players materialize into the arena. The moment Jihan lays eyes on them, he knows his luck is absolutely, positively cooked. Of all the players in the system, he had to get saddled with the unholiest trinity of teammates imaginable. First up, the sparkly kid. Jihan utterly humiliated him not that long ago, and teammate number 2 is the mage Jihan literally used as a personal stress ball. During his first defense mission, the only person on this disaster squad he hasn't personally sent to the graveyard yet is the professional football star turned player, Diego Maciel, the man who was Argentina's top player before Jihan's regression. Right now, though, Diego is a shadow of his former self. He looks frail and haunted, with a scraggly, unkempt beard. But on top of his rough appearance, something else is fundamentally wrong here. Shiny is the warrior, and Kim Do-hyuk is the mage, while Jihan is the support. That leaves Diego slotted in as the archer. This makes zero sense. In Jihan's last life, Diego was a powerhouse mage. Something has gone terribly wrong. Kim Do-hyuk looks about ready to explode over this matchup too. Thanks to Jihan knocking him out of the last game, the guy lost both his skill and his mission rewards. Then, a notification blares to life. Someone named Sword King Family 898 has registered a reward mission. The objective is simple and brutal. Destroy the crystal and make sure Song Jihan does not take first place. And the prize, just like with the Golden Light Bounty, is a life-changing mountain of cash. The countdown hits 0. The game begins. And Diego doesn't hesitate for a second, instantly launching his own offensive. He starts blasting zombies away with his soccer ball, managing to surgically snipe each one off the tower with pinpoint accuracy. He then yells at Jihan to hook him up with some support buffs, so he can amp up his power. Jihan's stats have always been too low to even try using support skills, so the thought never crossed his mind. But with his divine power stat now cranked up, maybe it's finally go time. He drops a strength buff, which all but confirms he's a support class, since he can hand out buffs. This reveal, however, only deepens the mystery for his viewers, who are now trying to figure out what his true class actually is. Before jumping into the fray, he looks at Kim Do-hyuk and asks if he's ready to play for real, this time. Meanwhile, Golden Light, who's still in full-on fanboy mode, is dying to know if Jihan and Kim Do-hyuk have some kind of history. But right now, the mage is cornered. If he tries to pull any stunts again, it's pretty clear Jihan will just toss him aside like last time. The mage has to play nice, and with that settled, Jihan takes a massive leap off the tower, diving headfirst into the zombie swarm. Diego's instant take on Jihan is that the guy's completely unhinged, and the mage couldn't agree more. He absolutely despises Jihan, and he's especially triggered by the fact that Jihan is treating him like some random sidekick. The mage has officially had enough. If Jihan is just gonna do whatever he wants, then what's stopping him from doing the exact same thing, right? Jihan plummets directly into the pit of undead horrors, a massive fireball already crackling in his hand, ready to detonate. With his freshly expanded pool of mana, and the divine power boost he got from creating force, a small swarm of zombies is basically a non-issue for our MC. He rains down a storm of holy fire upon the undead horde below. The moment he lands, he pivots with that ridiculously huge sword, and smashes it into the ground, unleashing a seismic shockwave that obliterates everything in the immediate vicinity. Even Diego can't wrap his head around how a bronze-rank support can be this OP, while Goldie just stares in awe at the man who absolutely dismantled him twice. This whole insane display is being broadcast live, and parts of the audience are guessing that Jihan probably wiped out 100 zombies with that single move. Up next are the blood zombies, which are way bigger and tougher than the regular mobs Jihan just vaporized. They charge him, only to slam into some kind of invisible barrier they can't break through. This is Jihan field testing the true potential of his space control ability, Force. With it, he can create an absolute territory, which is just a cool way of saying he can totally lock down the movement of anyone unlucky enough to be inside it. In some situations, he can even puppet their actions. Most players have no clue this power exists, but for Jihan, it's painfully familiar. In his past life, Baron, whose own control over Force was a total mess, constantly used Jihan as his personal training dummy. The two of them sparred relentlessly, and because of that, Jihan was constantly on the receiving end of Baron's force, allowing him to understand its every nuance. In this moment, Jihan is a god-tier being, wielding mana and divine power at the same time, on top of having force and his martial arts. Just based on his cheat-level abilities alone, Jihan is on a completely different plane than anyone else in the Bronze League. Less than a minute after he landed among the Horde, Jihan has already eliminated over 100 of them. The last time he had a defense mission, he failed the 1,000 kill quest. But this time, he knows for sure. He can absolutely crush it. He just needs to pick up the pace a little, and that achievement is in the bag. Every single swing of his weapon effortlessly mows down dozens of zombies at a time, and for everyone watching, the whole spectacle is just mind-bendingly absurd. His viewers are finally starting to get why he so boldly declared that he would be taking first place in every single match from now on. The only issue now is how to get him to 200,000 subscribers so they can finally see his status window. The rest of the team can only spectate, as Jihan effortlessly carries them all. But one person, in particular, has been alarmingly silent. Do-hyuk cracks a sinister smile, and the viewers' chat immediately blows up. They know something is about to go down. He tells Golden Light to turn around and look at the mage, and Goldie instantly sees the horrifying situation. Do-hyuk is standing right next to the crystal they're supposed to be protecting, a fireball glowing in his palm. His intentions are crystal clear. He's about to do something completely insane. But right before he pulls the trigger, he decides to take a moment to gloat at Jihan, who's still busy fighting off zombies. Feeling like he's totally safe, he unleashes all the bottled-up rage and jealousy he has for Jihan, spitting insults at him, and then he crosses the line by bringing up his niece, Seiya. The battlefield goes silent. Even the zombies freeze in their tracks and begin to tremble, sensing that this guy just made a fatal mistake. Jihan says nothing, as Do-hyuk keeps running his mouth, spewing vile accusations about Seiya, even going so far as to suggest Jihan did something awful to her to make her so loyal. That 55,000 GP bounty, the one that pushed Do-hyuk to pull a stunt this dumb, was posted by none other than the Sword King family, who've got a massive grudge against Song Jihan. When converted to real cash, those points stack up to a whopping 55 million won. An insane payday like that is more than enough to juice up Kim Do-hyuk with the kind of reckless courage he's flaunting right now. Jihan clocks the mage's every move, his gut screaming that a coward like this only grows a spine for two possible reasons. Either he's got powerful backup hiding in the shadows, or someone's dangling a fat reward in front of his face. The guy probably thinks that with Jihan so far away, he can just shatter the crystal and bolt without facing any heat. Jihan genuinely couldn't care less about trash talk aimed at him, but bringing up Seiya? That's a line he'll make sure no one ever gets to cross again. The day he returned to the past and saw Seiya again, that horrific nightmare, the one that became his reality, came crashing back. She used to wrap her face in bandages, all to conceal a scar she got from a terrorist attack orchestrated by the Sword King family. And by the time he finally reached her, her body was already cold. Back then, he was powerless to save her, left to do nothing but weep while clutching her lifeless form. But now, armed with the power to rewrite the future, Jihan swore he would never let that tragedy repeat itself. He would shield Seiya from anyone and anything that dared to harm her. Judging by the volcanic ki now erupting from his body, the viewers can see Jihan is absolutely livid. Even they know that talking smack about his family was a fatal mistake. But that doesn't change the cold hard fact. He is way too far from the crystal to do a damn thing. Or, at least, that's what everyone believes. Today, he's going to burn a lesson into their minds about what happens when you mess with Sia. The second he unlocked Force, he discovered something new while trying to merge his three dantians. He realized he could tap into the nameless divine arts. His martial power isn't at level 30 yet, so it's just a pale imitation. But in this moment, a cheap copy is all he needs. As he slammed the three powers into one, he felt a familiar surge, a jolt that mirrored the true nameless divine arts. All he needs to do is focus on the electricity crackling at his feet, then let it surge through his entire being until he practically becomes a living thunderbolt. From there, he just has to launch himself off the ground, and he can blitz across the field at the speed of light, using a technique called flashing sky thunder steps, a footwork method designed to literally break the sky. The Sword King family sees Jihan explode into motion, and they scream at the mage to hurry up and destroy the crystal now. Before Do-hyuk can land the blow, his other teammates swarm him, trying to run interference. He shoves Goldie back with a blast of fire, keeping him at a distance. The mage then begins to conjure an even deadlier fireball, only for it to be deflected by a soccer ball. The crystal remains untouched. The mage whirls around, demanding to know what Diego thinks he's doing, but the star athlete is dead serious. He treats every match with respect, and right now, he's just stopping a cheater from ruining the game. But it was more than that. Do-hyuk didn't just insult a teammate, he dragged his family through the mud, and that's a foul that can't be overlooked. Do-hyuk spins around to start a shouting match with Diego, but his time is up. Jihan has arrived, and he looks absolutely murderous. The fact that this mage still seems to have a lot to say tempts him to spew a few more insults, but our MC is done listening. With a flicker of force, he seals the mage's mouth shut. Jihan's first instinct was to just vaporize the guy's head the second he landed, but that's letting him off way too easy. He's decided to serve up a little punishment first, before he sends him packing. Every player's pain is dulled by their connector, so even if Jihan kills the mage right here, the worst that happens is he drops a single level. So instead, Jihan is about to unleash a world of hurt so severe, the mage will have nightmares about ever pulling a stunt like this again. Do-hyuk actually cracks a relieved smile, knowing that Jihan can't do anything to truly hurt him as long as he's logged in through his connector. Besides, he's already lost all his skills. What else is there to lose? Or so he thinks, right up until Jihan lays a hand on his shoulder and a tidal wave of unimaginable agony crashes over him. The man's shrieks are inhuman, but Jihan just tells him to chill out because the fun for the two of them is just getting started. The mage's screams rip through the entire game map, a testament to the unbelievable torment Jihan is inflicting. The other two can only watch Jihan's cold cruelty in shock, completely baffled as to why the mage is in so much pain. Normally, the battle connector is supposed to filter out any sensation intense enough to make someone scream like that. But then, Diego's eyes widen in realization. While Jihan is systematically breaking down the mage's body, he's also pouring continuous healing into him with his other hand. This move allows Jihan to trigger a nasty bug in the system. It turns out, if a support class spams recovery skills on an ally who is also taking damage over time, from something like poison or a burn, it causes a system overload effect. And during that overload, the player is forced to experience 100% of all the raw damage that the connector fails to filter. Whatever Jihan is doing, it looks like a fate worse than death. And they can only guess what kind of twisted skill Jihan is using to inflict this level of agony. So what's he actually doing? Is channeling his internal force to shred muscles and fracture bones from the inside out. This is a technique so advanced that only a handful of master martial artists could ever hope to pull it off. He's injecting a volatile energy directly into his target's body, designed to obliterate them from within. Do-hyuk is completely freaking out because his connector is supposed to be nullifying all the pain, but instead, it feels like his entire body is being impaled by a million scorching hot needles, and violently rattled. He can't take another second of this torture and starts screaming for Jihan to just kill him. Jihan doesn't hesitate for a second and grants the mage's wish, decapitating him with one flawless slash. But the moment the player's body hits the floor, Jihan is already pinpointing the respawn location. The instant he reappears, Jihan unleashes the punishment all over again, and this time, the pain is so unbelievably intense that Do-hyuk's body just gives out, dying from pure shock. At this point, this brutal cycle has been going on for a while, so long that even his viewers are starting to get seriously uncomfortable. When Do-hyuk materializes once more, he doesn't waste a single moment, immediately begging for his life as Jihan begins his menacing walk towards him. This has gone way too far now, and Sia knows she has to step in and stop her uncle from doing something irreversible. If he keeps going with this over-the-top punishment, he's going to alienate his entire fanbase. He needs to let go of this rage for now. and get his head back in the game. Jihan is far from satisfied, but for Sia's sake, he agrees to pump the brakes. It is supposed to be an era of peace, after all, and the brutal display he just put on should be more than enough to make an example out of anyone else who thinks about testing him. Before he finally puts the mage out of his misery, however, Jihan demands to know who sent him on this idiotic mission. The terrified mage instantly starts spilling his guts, revealing that the person who bankrolled this whole stunt was a user with the name Sword King Family 898. The Sword King family just kept throwing sponsorship money at him, and he got so caught up in the easy cash that he ended up doing something incredibly stupid. While that behavior totally tracks with what Jihan knows about the Sword King family, it's highly doubtful that a single person could have dropped a sum as massive as 50,000 gold points. That means it's way more likely this wasn't just one guy, but the entire organization pulling the strings. Now that he has the intel he was after, he grabs the mage by the collar and snarls at him to be thankful Sia was there to stop him from truly letting loose. Then, Jihan launches the guy into the sky for his final death, and as he flies, the mage screams his genuine thanks to Sia for making the torture stop. With that, Kim Do-yuk is permanently deleted and eliminated from the game. For that masterclass in torment and a world-class troll toss, Goldie and Diego each award Jihan a perfect 10. Now that the trash has been disposed of, Jihan needs to get back down there and clear out more zombies. He recalls taking out at least 920 of them. He figured he could easily wipe out another 80, without even breaking a sweat. But, when he pulls up his status window to check his kill count, he sees he's already cleared the linked quest. It was because of the thunderous clap from his flashing sky thunder steps. The electrical discharge from his takeoff supercharged the ground and fried the surrounding zombies, which gave him just enough kills to complete the objective. Honestly, it only happened because he failed to control the technique properly, and the overflow of power just exploded outwards. He hadn't even used the power of the nameless divine arts, and had only relied on the 3 Dantians, which is why his execution was so sloppy. But hey, the results were amazing, so he can't really complain. For now, it just means he needs to train way more and get a better handle on his abilities. Goldie tries to cozy up to Jihan, asking if he's heading back down so they can squad up and fight together, but our MC gives him the cold shoulder and walks right over to Diego. He thanks the soccer legend for helping to guard the crystal while he was making his way to it, and even offers to meet up later to properly return the favor. On top of that, there's a lot he wants to pick the guy's brain about. Their friendly chat is abruptly shattered, though, by a massive earthquake. It feels like something gigantic is trying to smash its way up from deep within the earth, and an event like this has never happened before. Goldie senses that something feels like it's about to detonate, and Diego spots something huge emerging in the distance. It's a colossal hand, with a literal mouth in its palm, ripping its way through the ground. This is a completely unknown monster, one that not even Jihan has ever encountered, and it's giving off seriously ominous vibes. The zombies all seem to get a sudden burst of energy now that this thing has arrived, and it looks like things are about to get absolutely insane. As the horde of zombies charges right for them, the monster hand lets out a terrifying roar, and the shockwave is powerful enough to make even Jihan freeze up. But it doesn't look like the zombies are getting powered up by the hand. In fact, it's the opposite. It looks like the monster is snatching up the zombies, chewing them, and straight up devouring them. The mangled pulp of undead in its mouth, it liquefies into a puddle of living goo, which then erupts into a brand new nightmare that has absolutely no business spawning in a bronze level map. It's a flesh golem, a monstrosity typically gatekept for gold tier dungeons or higher. The grim realization hits. The beast is literally tearing its minions apart and Frankensteining them into these new horrors. Jihan's mind races. Could this be tied to the linked quest? He immediately pulls up his status window to check. Link quest. Zombie Origin 1 has officially evolved into Zombie Origin 2, and the new objective is to eliminate the flesh golem without any help from the crystal. The command leaves Jihan completely baffled. What could, without the help of the crystal, possibly mean? But before he can even process it, a system notification pings. A bonus mission has just been issued. The alert blasts out to every other player, leaving them all just as shook as Jihan. Nobody can even begin to process the idea of fighting this towering creature, but the system has laid out their objective with brutal clarity. Annihilate it. The system also gives the colossal beast a name, Black Hand, the Disciple of Destruction. They also receive the Blessing of the Crystal, a buff designed to bridge the insane power gap and give them a sliver of a chance to fight back. Even Goldie, who packs the punch of a Gold League player, has serious doubts about them winning this fight. In fact, he confesses to Jihan that even high-level players like him get wrecked by these kinds of quests. This is definitely not a mission that they are meant to clear. Otherwise, the rewards wouldn't be so ridiculously high. The system is offering him 10,000 achievement points and a crystal fragment. It's almost unheard of for the system to offer anything beyond points, This screams that it's at least an epic-level quest. With a heavy sigh, Goldie accepts his grim fate. He then urges Jihan to at least receive the crystal's blessing first, but our main character flat-out refuses. He just tightens his grip on his sword, preparing to launch himself at the flesh golem as it lumbers toward their crystal. A flesh golem is an undead tank, known for its insane vitality. The only way to put one down is to obliterate the core hidden deep within its body.